Good evening, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Council of the City of Long Beach, held Tuesday, April 18th, 2023 at 7 p.m. We'll have a roll call. Councilmember Apostoli.
Here.
Councilmember Lester. Here. Councilmember McGinnis.
Present.
Vice President Treston.
Here.
President Bendo.
Present.
Let the record indicate, Let the record indicate the presence of Acting City Manager Ron Walsh and Assistant Corporation Counsel Joe Lupo. We'll now have a salute to the flag.
I'm going to ask our guest corp counsel, Joe Lupo, to lead us. All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our second meeting of April. And why don't we get going with the city manager's report?
Mr. President.
Do you have a question coming from
What do you need? I got it. I noticed that there are a lot of new faces and returning faces. In case you do not know if you want to speak at Good and Welfare, the papers are on the side to make sure you please sign up. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our second meeting of April. As part of our city manager's report, I'd like to start off with letting everybody know that this month is actually National Fair Housing Month. This year, we're commemorating 55 years, or the 55th anniversary of the passage of the Fair Housing Act, which was a landmark civil rights law that made discrimination in housing unlawful. The Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination in housing because of race, color, national origin, religion, sex, including gender identity and sexual orientation, disability, and family status. The City of Long Beach, along with the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development and Nassau County, encourages special attention to fair housing during April. To recognize Fair Housing Month, the City Community Development Office has provided a poster and informational flyer with local resources for anyone who needs them in both Spanish and English. The information is also posted on our city website, and we have flyers here tonight if you want to take one home. Some of the things that I want to get back on, there was some media coverage this week on the Martin Luther King Center and a lot of conversation surrounding it. So I want to try and clarify some of the misnomers that are out there a little bit with regard to the MLK Center. The first thing is that there's no intention at all on the part of this city to sell that property or to close the center. That center is every bit in our plans to remain open. There's no intention to change the name of the center. There's no intention to change the name of the center. We understand that the community and is particularly attached to the name, and we were actually thinking of during the process that we're going through right now of opening it up to, because I've gotten some suggestions, how about the Martin Luther King Jr. North Park Community Center and things like that. So I don't think that unilaterally we would want to change the name without the support of the community anyway. So, but just know that that's not something in the plans. There was also a meeting that was held last night at the center itself, and there were some misnomers put out there that there was some ideas that the property was up for sale, or that we're going to build condominiums on there. That's blatantly false. The main thing that we're focusing on here in this city is to ensure that the center is providing the level of services that is most responsible to the city. We want to build the center. We want the center to be we want the center to be what it was always designed to be and get back to the level of services that it provided many years ago. And we understand that there's issues and problems that are going on there, and we're not blind and we're not insensitive to those things. The only thing that's on the table right now with that center, you hear this thing about the RFP. The center is the only thing that really hasn't been RFP'd, request for proposal. It's the only area of business that we haven't RFP'd in 25 years. I don't think I don't think ever, actually, which is irresponsible because that's sort of the way we do business as a government. People have to bid to use government property to do business with the city. So there's nothing preventing the Martin Luther King Incorporated from putting in a bid for that. They're more than welcome to put in and compete to run the center and continue running the center. So I just wanted to try and give a little bit of clarity to that because it's really unfair to see and hear some of the things that are being stated when in actuality what this council and what this administration is trying to do is make that center an even better place and provide after-school programming and educational programming and senior programming and open it up to our seniors who want to play pickleball on the court and all those things that seem to have slowed down a little bit. And, that's the main point of that. So the dialogue is open and we're still working on trying to make that a success. We had several meetings this week with Equinor, numerous meetings. All the council members met. I met with them, and what came out of that was very interesting. Because there's a lot of conversation that it's the city's responsibility. It's the city has to vote yes. So a lot of questions were asked, and I want to do some little clarifying here as well. The first thing is that the Public Safety Committee is the one that decides whether or not those wires come through Long Beach. So Public Service Committee, sorry, not safety, I apologize, thank you, President Bendo. That commission is the one that does the Article 7 process. And any one of you in this room who wants to participate in that can sign up and have a say in what's done. So I specifically asked a question when we were meeting with our council and about that, and basically I asked, what happens if Long Beach says no? And it's a matter of law, is what it is. If the Public Service Commission says it's going through Long Beach, it's going to go through Long Beach. It's not our choice, it's their choice. Now we go in and we represent our concerns to that commission through that process, and we represent the needs of the community as well as anyone in this room who wants to can. And we encourage you to. But I also asked, well, what about the alternate routes? Every single alternate route is through the city of Long Beach. So what happens next is if they decide that it's not going to happen, right, or then it's off, right? Okay, this route's no good, they go to an alternate route. That route's no good, they go to an alternate route. Eventually, unless the federal government and the state government somehow don't approve the plan that they have, these things are inevitable. And the position that this council is in is to ensure that if it's going to go through Long Beach, we make sure that the safety and security concerns of the city are represented properly. And that's where we're trying to focus our attention. We're not going to just give them our property. We're not just going to give them our land by the bridge. We're going to work to make sure that the interests and the safety of this community is best represented. That's the process we're in. If we say no, they can petition the state, they can condemn the property that they want. It's a process, it'll take some time, and eventually they will get the property. And what we lose is the financial benefit that we can negotiate, the state would assign. Very much like the assignment of eminent domain when they take property that way. They assign a property value and they give it to you. So that's kind of the way it works. And I just wanted to put some clarity out there so that, because there's a lot of misconceptions out there that the city of Long Beach can say no and it's over. And that's just not the case. It's the Article 7 process that decides whether or not it comes here. A couple other things that I'd like to announce also before our first presentation tonight is that this Saturday is Earth Day, and there's going to be a celebration out on Kennedy Plaza. There's a lot actually happening around the city this weekend. So the Arts Council is going to be unveiling a sculpture that it has out in front of the building, and they're also going to be, between 1 and 4 p.m., they're going to be music and celebrations in the plaza. It's also Drug Take Back Day. We have We're going to be out, the police department will be outside the front of City Hall from 10 to 2 o'clock, and any of your unwanted prescription medications that you're trying to get rid of, please bring, and we will gladly take them from you and dispose of them properly. And during that, we usually give out kits, too, where narcotics and other drugs can be neutralized by putting them in a particular bag with a little bit of water so that they're rendered safe in your homes. E-cycling is also, and shredding is also taking place on Saturday behind City Hall. This is where you bring your old electronics and any materials that you want to have shredded, and that's between 9 and 1 p.m. Behind City Hall. And then on Sunday, we have the STOP program, which is where you can bring all your paints and hazardous chemicals and batteries and things like that to the rear of City Hall, and all of that material is very, very busy usually that day. That's from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the back of City Hall, and that's sponsored along with the town of Hempstead. Now I want to call up Joe Fabrizio, who's going to introduce the long-awaited presentation on our flood mitigation program that's going to be presented by D&B. So, Joe?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Joe Fabrizio. I'm the Commissioner of Public Works. At the last 3 or 4 council meetings, many of the residents have been requesting a presentation on the North Shore Critical Infrastructure Protection Project. Well, we're finally here. We asked our consulting engineering firm, which is D&B Engineers and Architects, to give that presentation. I have Tom Schaefer here from D&B Engineers and Architects. I have Russell Darris from D&B Engineers and Architects. I also have Robert Rabb from D&B Engineers and Architects. Rob was the Commissioner of Public Works for 22 years, from 1986, 22 years from that point. And I had the pleasure of working for him. He's a great person. He's my mentor, actually. So I'm glad to have him back here, giving the presentation tonight. We also have a representative from Basilico here. His name is Chad Greco. So all of us will be here to answer any questions from the council after the presentation. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Tom to go over the presentation. And this is also on the website as well for anybody who wants to see it. And we've also printed copies. They're over on the side. Okay? Thank you.
Crystal, do you have a copy?
Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name's Tom Schaefer, licensed engineer at D&B. We'd like to thank the City Council for having us here tonight. So the project team, the project is being funded by FEMA. It is being 100% funded by FEMA. It's a $39 million project, and the way that works is essentially the city has to lay out the money, but it will be reimbursed by FEMA. D&B is the engineer on the project. The construction is being split in 2 contracts. There's a general contract, which is Basilico Bove, and the electrical contract is the Hoagland Group. If you're not familiar with D&B, we've done a lot of work in the city. I'm not going to go through every project that we've done, but there has been a lot of work that we've been involved with, so we're very familiar with the city. So this project, to say it's been a long time coming is an understatement. I don't have to tell anybody here that Superstorm Sandy was over 10 years ago, which is just crazy to even say, but the city, the year after Sandy, obtained the original FEMA approval for the project. The following year is when we were brought on to start the design process. The following year after that, the engineering report was finished, and that was used to submit to the permitting agencies to start the permit process. Based on comments from those agencies, they required a whole redesign of the project, based on realigning the bulkhead, bringing it closer in towards the shoreline. And then it was another about 3-year process to actually obtain all the required approvals for this project. That was through the DEC, the Army Corps, Town of Hempstead, Department of Health. So there were a lot of agencies that were involved in that process. Once all those permits were approved, the city immediately went out for bid. That was from September 2019 to November 2019. Based on the bids that were received, the city had to go back to FEMA and request additional funds for the project. Concurrently with that, because a portion of the project is going across the railroad property, an agreement needed to be finalized with the railroad. Both of those were a long process. In April of 2022, FEMA approved the additional funds, and that's the $39 million total. And then in December of 2022, the agreement with the railroad was finally finalized, and that was a big effort on part of the city because they really did not really want much to do with the project. And January of this year, once the agreement with the railroad was finalized, the city awarded the construction contracts, and work has now started and is anticipated to run to October of next year. So I mentioned some of these, but the amount of coordination that had to be done with different utilities and agencies on this project is really above and beyond. All along the shoreline, you have National Grid facilities, PSE&G facilities, you have Verizon that had to get involved. I already mentioned FEMA, DEC, the Army Corps, Department of Health, Nassau County, Town of Hempstead. Every one of these agencies reviewed the plans, had comments, which needed to be accepted prior to the city going ahead and bidding this. So what are we actually doing? So I'm not expecting everyone to be able to see the figure on the bottom there, but essentially it's a figure showing the amount of inundation during Superstorm Sandy. And you all know this best, but you had Reynolds Channel essentially meeting the waters of the ocean. And along the Reynolds Channel shoreline was one of the worst hit parts, where all the city's critical infrastructure is. So as part of this project, there's a couple key goals that we want to achieve. Number one is we want to fortify that shoreline to protect against that chronic flooding and erosion that's occurring. It's the only portion of Reynolds Channel that is currently unprotected. Number two, we want to better manage the stormwater runoff that's in this area. Essentially what you have now is anytime the existing stormwater outfall on Riverside Boulevard is submerged by the tides, the stormwater collection system is really not forcing that water out. There's not enough pressure. Number three, all those utilities that are beneath Water Street along along the shoreline there have not been upgraded since since when they were originally installed. So as part of the project, we're going to upgrade all those utilities, which I'll get into more. So the limits of the project. We're starting by the boat ramp by the dog park. You can just look out the window. And then going all the way east past Long Beach Road all the way to Monroe Boulevard. So it's 2,900 feet of shoreline about that's getting protected. I mentioned some of these, but starting on the west side of the project limits, you have the wastewater treatment plant, you have the Long Island Railroad, you have the city's water plant, you have the PSE&G substation, you have National Grid facilities there, and in addition, just south of these, you have Channel Park Homes right here, and you have the North Park community just south of that also. So there's a lot of infrastructure and community that we want to protect. This is what the shoreline looks now. The left-hand side is looking west towards the railroad bridge. The right photo is looking east towards Long Beach Road. So you can see the shoreline has no protection whatsoever. Here's an image of Water Street. So all beneath Water Street, the city has sanitary sewer lines that actually cross underneath the railroad property and continue to the plant. The city has water lines going to and from the water plant. And then National Grid owns gas mains in this roadway, and PSE&G owns cables. This is a view of the wastewater treatment plant that's going to be protected. Again, the railroad, the water plant, PSE&G substation, and National Grid. Now this is a photo where those yellow pipes are. There are two gas mains that go down to the floor bed of Reynolds Channel and actually cross Reynolds Channel. And it actually supplies over 60% of the gas for Long Island. And so this was a particular part of the project where National Grid, obviously, this is a very critical gas line for them. There was extensive coordination and back and forth with them in coordinating the design around these structures. And then lastly, also coordinating with Nassau County in regards to the Long Beach Road Bridge. So I'm not expecting you to be able to see all that from your seats, but this slide basically goes over each of the project components in a very kind of aerial overview sense. So on the west side, at the boat ramp by the dog park, we obviously don't want to put a permanent structure that's going to block access to the boat ramp. So what's going to be installed there is known as a Tiger Dam system. Essentially, it's a deployable system. It's filled with water and strapped down. You would set that up prior to a storm event, and then it's removed following the storm event. Starting at the bulkhead, the existing bulkhead at the dog park, we would install our new bulkhead all the way from the dog park, going east all the way to the railroad tracks. At the railroad tracks, this is again another critical point where there's a lot of coordination with the railroad and back and forth. Again, we can't put a permanent structure that's going to block the tracks. So what's proposed here is a stackable flood barrier system. So there's a photo on the right. The second photo from the left is the flood barrier stackable system. The photo on the left is the Tiger Dam system. Immediately on the east side of the tracks, the bulkhead is going to continue all the way from the railroad tracks all the way east to Monroe. So past the wastewater treatment plant, past the water plant, underneath the Long Beach Road Bridge, all the way to Monroe. No, not yet. Now, along that, there are PSE&G cables that cross Reynolds Channel. So we had to coordinate with PSE&G. You have the outfall, the wastewater treatment plant outfall that has to get extended through the new bulkhead. You have the National Grid gas mains that I mentioned. The city also owns a couple stormwater outfalls that have to get extended through the bulkhead. And then where those National Grid gas mains are, there's also in that portion of the project going to be a stone revetment on the seaward side of the bulkhead for added protection. Behind the bulkhead, on the landward side, along Water Street, as I mentioned, all those utilities are going to be replaced as part of the project. You have the city sanitary, the city water, and then National Grid and PSE&G, while the construction is going on, they're going to upgrade their facilities. Water Street is going to be completely repaved. It's going to include a new sidewalk. There's currently no sidewalk there, and new street lighting. Currently, there's no lighting in that area, so that's going to be added. At Riverside, there's going to be a new gravel walkway that goes from Riverside behind the bulkhead all the way underneath the Long Beach Road Bridge to Monroe. And lastly, for the stormwater aspect, at the terminus of Riverside, we're going to be installing a new stormwater treatment system. Currently, right now, any stormwater runoff through that part of the collection system goes through the outfall untreated right into the channel. As part of the project, the city is installing a new system that's going to filter out sediment, any garbage, things like that. That will be directed to a new, and that's below grade. There's an image. The third photo from the left is an example. It's going to be a below grade system. You won't see it. You just see a manhole in the street. Just to the east of that, east of Riverside, will be a new below grade stormwater pump station. The purpose of that stormwater pump station is to, in the event that the stormwater outfall is submerged, the stormwater pump station is going to force that water out of the city system. And that has a capacity of 33 million gallons per day. So this is a very high capacity system. Slightly to the east of that, so the pump station is going to be below grade. Slightly to the east of that, a standby generator is going to be installed for that pump station. In the event of power loss, that pump station can still operate during a storm event. So that's a very, very brief kind of overview of the many aspects of this project. This is just providing a little more detail on this slide. I'm not going to read through all of it, but just to give you some more aspects of the project. As I mentioned, it's 2,900 feet of shoreline that's getting protected. The bulkhead is going to be installed with a new timber cap and a new railing on top. As I mentioned, that stormwater pump station, very high capacity, 33 million gallons per day it's going to be able to pump. The stormwater treatment unit is also a pretty high capacity unit. That's going to treat up to 50 cubic feet per second, so that's another very large unit that's getting installed. And as I mentioned, the restoration component of Water Street, we're really trying to improve that existing area, make it a little more accessible. Okay, this is a very high level schedule, very kind of general schedule. As I mentioned before, the contractors were given their notice to proceed in January, so they have begun the project. They're going through the submittal process, which essentially they submit to the engineer all the materials and equipment that they'd like to use on the project. We approve it or comment on it. They go ahead and start to order it. Supply chain is something that everyone has heard now. We're trying to make sure that we stay on schedule and getting these things ordered as soon as we can. So we're going through that process now. They're also coordinating with the utilities, doing their test bits, verifying that the utilities are where we actually think they are, below grade. We anticipate that the bulkhead installation will actually start sometime around July and go through August, and that the pump station would start being installed October of this year and be completed by October of next year, and the restoration and road work starting July and ending by October of next year. So the goal is for the project to be done by October of next year. So that was a very kind of brief overview. I think we're open to questions. I'm not sure how that works, but.
Are there any questions from the council at this time?
I guess, go ahead, Ken.
Okay, thank you for this presentation. I just have a few questions regarding the deployable flood barriers. Are those, assuming that everything is maintained by the project engineers throughout the project through completion, right? Which will be in October 2024, thereabouts. After that, who maintains all of these various deployable barriers?
Yeah, the city will be responsible for deploying the barriers at the boat ramp and working with the railroad to deploy the barrier there.
So that will be in next fiscal year, right?
Correct.
So are there additional costs that will be necessary to maintain and to operate those equipment as well as training?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because right now we started to install these deployable barriers at multiple buildings. We're installing them at the Martin Luther King Center. We're installing them at the Ice Arena. And now we're going to have them at the waterfront. So we really do have to probably develop a comprehensive plan when a storm is coming, work with OEM to make sure we have a crew that's trained in installation of these barriers, because some of them can be quite complex. There's a lot of parts. It's time consuming. So you'd have to know if a storm is coming, like maybe 3-4 days in advance, that these have to be deployed. So to answer your question, there is time and effort that goes into to deploying these barriers.
And that will be under your oversight and OEM?
It would be actually OEM and my oversight, I guess. It would be a joint venture, joint responsibility.
Do we have an incremental cost per year to maintain and operate this equipment?
I don't have that, but we can certainly come up with something. No problem.
Okay, and then my other question is, in the spirit of Roy Lester, who's present, are there warranties on all of this equipment?
Depending on the equipment, each warranty is different, but yes. So
Okay.
whether you're talking about the stormwater station pumps, there's warranties on that. There's warranties on these flood barrier systems, and that's all within the specs, which we can provide.
And is there an official handover, or is there a grace period in between when FEMA, like the Army Corps of Engineers, we haven't taken over certain, what do you call it? Certain groins yet, right? Because of, we weren't sure how they would work. Is something similar to that
So-
apply in this project?
Yeah, the city will not take over until the project is completed and accepted, so.
By the DEC, New York State,
No.
or FEMA?
No, by the city. So the city, when the contractor submits for saying that the project is done, we're going to do a walkthrough with the city to identify any missing items, missing things that still need to be done. Once those items are done, we would then make final payment, and at that point, the city would have ownership of everything that was installed.
And that would be also coordinating with FEMA, right?
Well, the city would submit to FEMA to reimburse that final payment.
Okay,
But
thank you.
FEMA has already approved the work to be done, and we intend to follow the work. And
Right,
not-
but
not-
it'll be
not-
up-
Not
up-
make any changes.
And it'll be up to their specs as well
Yes.
before we take it over?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Just a couple of questions. And Ina, we will be reimbursed, but will we be reimbursed for the interest that we have to put out? You know, we'll be bonding and then we'll be reimbursed. Like, you know, with the sewer, they said they would reimburse. No? Any idea what it's going to cost us for 39 million?
Hi. Ina Resnick, City Controller. No, we only borrowed $15 million so far, and that's float, the working capital that we will need to start the project. We're already paying interest on it, so what FEMA is going to reimburse us is the actual cost. As the work is going to be done, we're going to be using this $15 million, or a portion thereof, to pay you guys. And submitting those invoices to FEMA to get reimbursed.
But we don't get reimbursed for the interest?
For the interest, no.
Oh, okay. All right. And then a question on the actual pathway. You said there'll be a gravel pathway on the side, on the land side of
Yes.
the bulkhead. Any idea how high that bulkhead will be at the path?
Yep, yeah, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that. The bulkhead will be constructed to the base flood elevation for this area, which is
No, I mean-
elevation 9 feet.
What I'm trying to picture is if someone's walking, are they
Yep.
going to see a bulkhead above their head, or are they going to be
Yeah.
able to see the
It will
water?
be a couple feet above grade. So,
It'll be very similar to what you see on Bay Drive between Washington and Magnolia, where you're walking and the bulkhead's probably, maybe waist high or shoulder high.
And then it
But
says...
it's definitely going to be higher than the ground. I mean, it's going to be 3 or 4 feet higher than the ground.
Okay, and then it says it'll be capped with...
There's going to be a
Timber.
rail and there's going to be a decorative light path, correct? Lights along the path? Along Water Street, okay.
But that's not a cap you can walk on, right?
No, it's a rail, very similar to what you have on Bay Drive between Washington and Magnolia.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Joe, my question's for you,
Sure.
but thank you all for this very important work. Thank you, and for the
Thank you,
presentation.
thank you.
Thank you.
Joe, just one more thing.
Oh, wait, I had
Oh,
a
I'm sorry, I
question.
thought you were done. Okay.
It was-
Thought you were just complimenting.
I was complimenting first because it's great, but then in the secondary, is there a plan coming at another point, maybe for the canals that,
In what respect?
in the bulkheading
Well, like
area?
right now, the only piece of bulkheading that has not been upgraded in the entire city, that's public bulkheading, is Clark Street.
Yeah,
We have $1 million in the capital budget for that purpose. I don't think that, right now, my intent is to put out a request for proposals to retain an engineering firm to do the design of the Clark Street bulkhead, which will be very similar to the other two that we just completed. It'll be that high elevation 9 or so, and then we'll go out to bid to actually construct it.
I was really talking about back on the bay side, because I know there's still like a lot of flooding that happens.
A lot of the flooding from the bay side is either because, one, the tide flex valve is not functioning, and I mentioned that to a few residents, one at Armour Street, I think one at Dalton Street, where the tide flex valve is defective. We're going to be putting out a bid to replace tide flex valves very shortly to help mitigate that problem. Other than that, I mean, if you have a high tide and you have the high street end bulkheads that the city installed at elevation 9, and then you have the adjacent neighbor bulkheads that are at elevation 5, the water will come around when you have these extreme high tide events.
Yeah, okay.
But the new code was passed where new bulkheads are supposed to be installed, even in the public sector, at, I think, the base flood elevation. So ultimately, hopefully, everybody will be at the same height. It'll take many, many years, but that's the goal.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just one final question, Joe. So there are, since Water Street will now be paved and have lighting, which hasn't basically existed back there before, you know, there are people that fish on the old remnants of the pier back there. With the new bulkhead, might there be an opportunity to put some kind of platform or something in where people could potentially fish off of?
I think you're going to have a lot of opportunity back there.
That's what I'm saying, open it up for some recreational
Yeah,
use.
there's going to be so much potential once we finish this project. I mean, you know, once you stabilize the shoreline, it's probably unlimited. I mean, whatever ideas, I'd be happy to entertain. We could put our heads together.
I have a question, too.
All right, you almost got away, but Karen,
Liz
It's
first.
okay.
go to something
Liz
else.
first? Thank you. I'm following up on Mr. Lester's question regarding the gravel walkway. Did you say it was a walkway, a pedestrian walkway?
Is that?
Or it's just, so, but it's made of gravel?
Yes, yes.
And how?
That was a cost measure during coordination with FEMA. Just to even have that added in, you know, it's really just a flood protection project. So anything behind the bulkhead really had to be coordinated with FEMA to convince them to even add it.
Instead of permeable pavement?
Yeah. Yes.
I'm done, thank you.
And my final question, I think, is maybe for someone else, but the parking on Park Place has always mystified me. And now with all the construction going on, has there been an official stance on that? Or are people just going to park for free, commercial vehicles? Or do they?
So there was a suspension of the commercial parking permit requirement down there for a short period of time, but I think that's been put back in place, and then the other restrictions along Park Place still exist.
Even with all the construction? Okay.
Because it's not, the construction is taking place up against the waterfront. So once the fencing and stuff like that was erected, the parking went back to normal.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. No, I don't know. No, they don't ask during the... So, the last part of the city manager's report is some exciting news for the city. We have a special guest here tonight that I want to do an introduction for. The city has went through a pretty extensive search, and we were able to hire if it gets approved tonight, so I don't want to preempt anything, but it should get approved tonight, our new corporation counsel. In the audience tonight, and I'll ask him to stand up in a second, is Mr. Dennis Cohn. Dennis Cohn is going to be our new corporation counsel. He is the current Suffolk County attorney. He has served in that position on and off for a couple of times. He also was 8 years the deputy county executive, the chief deputy county executive for the Suffolk County. He was a district court judge for 4 years. He was the town of Babylon's lead attorney as well. He has extensive experience in labor negotiations, as well as he was on the Workers' Compensation Board for a while, and he has zoning experience. It was really a terrific find for the city, and I'm very proud to announce Mr. Cohn. Dennis, would you mind standing up and being welcomed by the crowd here today? Thank you. That item will be coming up later tonight, but just in case, judging by the time already, in case some of you don't make it, I wanted to introduce him to the city. And that concludes my city manager report.
Okay. Before we move on to the agenda, I just wanted to add one thing about Equinor. And during my meeting with Equinor,
And mine.
what?
Our meeting. It's part of the city manager.
We don't do that during city manager reports. It's just informational. No, we don't. The public doesn't ask questions during the city manager report. So you can ask during good and welfare if you'd like. But anyway, back to Equinor. So when I met with them, Ms. Kramer, please. Ms. Kramer, please.
Ms. Kramer, if you're going to continue to interrupt the meeting, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I really don't want to do that. The decorum here is that at Good and Welfare, you're able to ask any questions that you like. Thank you very much.
So, being a nuclear engineer, I'm no stranger to projects that are controversial with people. So during my conversation with Equinor, I will say it was a rather cordial but forceful conversation where I effectively told them I thought they were doing an absolutely abysmal job of informing the public on this project and the pros and the cons and answering people's questions. Got a lot of claims of we'll do better, we'll see, but not being satisfied with that, I've reached out to the governor's office as well and spoken to people in the governor's office several times now and have basically beaten up on them as well about the same thing and demanding that they come down on Equinor and tell them they better start doing a better job of informing our residents about the project. So I'm going to stay on top of them on that, and they claim they were going to help, and I'm going to hold them to that. So I just wanted people to know that.
Mr. President Bendo, could you please clarify the setting in which you had the meeting and how each council member was at such said meeting?
The meeting was broken up into groups. Some of the council members met solo, some met in twos. There was, I believe, 6 people from Equinor, their lawyer, and one of their consultants. I guess he's like a public relations type person. And we met in the city manager's office.
And acting city manager Walsh was in each meeting. So there was a series of 3 meetings with a maximum of 2 city council members there at a time.
Okay. So let's move on to the agenda now.
First item is a public hearing for resolution granting waiver of Wall Street parking requirements for premise 511 Long Beach Boulevard, street floor.
Good evening, Mr. President, City Manager, members of the City Council. My name is Dennis Kelly. I'm an attorney. I represent the owner of the premises located at 511 Long Beach Boulevard, otherwise known as LB Road Enterprises, Inc., who's seeking to rent the premises to the 2 people you see staying next to me. That is Victor Crespo and Jen Kraus, who are seeking to open a deli, grocery store, mini market at the location that was up until recently an Allstate insurance agent's office. We're here to ask for a waiver of off-street parking due to the practical difficulties of parking in general for commercial establishments here in the city of Long Beach. I'll introduce to you Mr. Crespo and Ms. Kraus to talk to you about what they intend to do at the premises. They are Long Beach residents, in fact, long time. And with that, without further ado, I'll give you Mr. Crespo and Ms. Kraus.
Good evening, Council. My name is Victor Crespo, and I live in the city of Long Beach.
Sir, could you just speak a little louder?
The microphones aren't that great. You're going to have to get a little bit closer to it. Thanks.
My name is Victor Crespo, and I live in the city of Long Beach.
Thank you.
Okay, could you just tell us a little about the business?
Well, living in the city of Long Beach for 12 years, I figured that it will be a good idea to have another spot where you can grab a quick sandwich and a quick lunch and dinner also. And it's mainly a deli mini supermarket where at the last minute that somebody that is going to the house can just stop by and pick something up.
Okay. Now, you also operate the Silverado Garage on the side street, right?
I work with Mr. Amar Boer on the back, and I help Phil, and I've been there for a few years. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. How many employees do you anticipate having?
Well, I'm going to be doing all the work. She's going to collect the money.
Okay.
But
All right.
mostly the two of us, and we have two older sons that will probably help us in the business.
Okay. Do you expect to be open 7 days a week?
We expect to be open 7 days a week, yes.
Okay. And about what hours would you anticipate?
We have put down between 6 a.m. and to 10 p.m. We will probably shorten that, but that's...
I hope you're going to go home for a nap in the middle of the day if you're working those hours.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you deliveries? How many would you expect to get, on average in a week?
On a week, we'll see how it goes.
Because obviously you'll have vendors bringing you product and things like that.
Exactly. Yeah, that will depend on the business, yes.
Okay. All right. Any questions from the other council members?
Just one quick question. Will you be selling beer?
I'm sorry?
Will you be selling beer?
Most likely in the future, we will, yes.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Any more questions from the council?
No.
Any questions from the public? All right. Seeing none, let's close the hearing, and why don't we vote on that item now?
Thank you
So
very much.
Okay.
On the regular calendar, we're going to call item 2 out of order, which is a resolution granting waiver of off-street parking requirements for premise 511 Long Beach Boulevard, street floor. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes, welcome to Long Beach again.
President Bendo.
Yes, welcome, and we look forward to another great new business. Good luck.
All right, circling back to the top of the calendar, item 1 is a presentation of the results of the audit of fiscal year 2022 to the City Council.
So, Ina, you want to come up and introduce Renato?
Hi, good evening again. We have here partner, Tim Doyle, and principal, Heather Briggs. They're both with Bonadia and Company, and they are our independent auditors. City is required to have their financial statements audited, so we can provide them with the opinion of the auditors that they're fairly presented in all material respects in accordance with the accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. We give them to Moody's for our bond ratings. The presentation that you heard before about the project that's going to be funded by FEMA and all the other grants that we're receiving, we filed those reports with the federal government to assure them that our financial records are materially fairly stated. And without further delay, I'm going to turn it over to Tim and Heather.
Thank you.
Again, Tim Doyle and Heather Briggs. I am the partner on your engagement, and Heather's principal. So we did recently wrap up the audit of Long Beach, and we're here. Thank you for inviting us to your meeting this evening. We're here to present the results of those audits. Better? Okay, thank you. So we're here to report on the results of the audit. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. So some of the deliverables as part of this audit, we have a required communication letter that at the conclusion of all audits, the auditors are required to put in writing certain items in a report to the board. Very standard. We'll go through some of those. Your basic financial statements, the statements themselves and the disclosures are the statements of the city. However, included in that report is our opinion on those statements, which we'll go over. Additionally, a management letter, so that's an area where we might find areas for improvement that we note to the city. The Uniform Guidance Single Audit, this is your federal compliance audit. There was talk before about FEMA, that's federal monies. Where you have federal monies, we're required to, on a rotational basis, test certain programs each year, and so we have our report on that. And then lastly, the New York State DOT audit, so there's some Department of Transportation monies from New York State where when you exceed a certain amount, you have to have a separate audit of that as well. So the required communication letter, the board has received a full letter and all of the items that were required to put in writing. Some of the things we just wanted to note, you did implement GASB 87, a new lease standard, which requires you to report leases and capitalize them on your balance sheet. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through. We're also required to note any significant estimates and disclosures that are identified in your statements. We encountered no disagreements with management related to any financial accounting, reporting, or auditing matters, and we're required to disclose that in the report whether we did or didn't have any of those issues. When we get to the management letter, or actually the significant deficiency that we noted, there were some difficulties in performing the audit. Again, we have to note whether there was or wasn't any difficulties. This year we did feel that there were some timing issues in terms of the timing of being able to get the audit done. Ultimately, all of the information was available. It was really more of a timing issue, but we'll go into that in detail as well.
Okay, so the audit of the financial statements, Ina mentioned before, we give an independent auditor's opinion. You received an unmodified opinion. That's the highest opinion you can receive, and what it means is that in our opinion, your financial statements are fairly presented. Also, there's a government auditing standards report issued. It talks about internal controls. It talks to material weaknesses and significant deficiencies. There was a material weakness last year. That has been cleared up and corrected. This year there was a significant deficiency noted. We'll go through that later on. It's not as high as a material weakness, but we need to bring it to attention anyway. No issues with compliance with laws and regulations were noted within that government auditing standards report either. So some high-level audit financial statements. Your government-wide net position. Your government-wide is the full accrual accounting statements. They're the first line of statements in your financial statements. Their net position went from a negative $262 million, so a deficit. It decreased to $246 million, so about a $16 million swing in the positive. That really has a lot to do with the change in actuarial valuation. So an actuary comes in and values the pension liability, something that the city has very little control over, and the other post-employment liability. Now, the other post-employment liability is, health insurance liabilities that are really driven by contracts, employment contracts within the city. It's a pay-as-you-go basis. There can be no reserve for this. You can't fund the liability, so every year you're just going to pay the health insurance retiree benefits as they go, and the liability really increases or decreases based on what's called the discount rate. And as you've noticed, we've had high inflation. The discount rate really follows that. It's based on a bond rating, or excuse me, a bond rate. So your valuation was done in the beginning of the year, so July of 2021, before interest rates really soared. So there was an increase in your OPEB. Fast forward to July 2022, you should see that discount rate increase. I can't vouch to how much or what it's going to be, but based on what we've seen, that discount rate's going to go up and the liability should decrease because it has an inverse relationship. For the pension liabilities, ERS, so employees' retirement, and PFRS, police and fire, those are both liabilities that are required to be listed on your statement of net position, basically your balance sheet. Again, the city has no say in how they're valued. They're valued by an actuary. They've also follow certain rates and how the markets are changing and how the markets are doing. So the ERS, the employee's retirement, went from a liability to an asset. And similarly, but not quite as significant, the PFRS liability was reduced from 4.8 to 1.6. And again, this is based on an actuarial valuation and change in rates. So fund balance overall for all the government funds. Now this is each individual funds of the city, the general fund being one of them. The general fund increased itself 6.6 million. This resulted in an increase of the unassigned fund balance from 3 million to 10 million. There was also new debt of $78 million, and 74.5 of this was for the Haberman settlement. And it's not uncommon to see debt utilized for, significant settlements within municipalities. And just to show some revenue and expenditure trends over time, where you were, where you're going, or where you are, you can see that revenues have increased. Expenditures also have been increasing. Costs are rising. We do have inflation. I would expect to see expenditures, on the rise again. But we just wanted to show some historical comparison in the last 4 years.
Just add a little additional information to one of the slides that Heather had mentioned. The large net deficit, net position that the city has is something that we see all throughout New York State. The biggest factor, and why Heather was pointing out, one of the biggest factors is your other post-employment benefits liability. And it is something throughout New York State in governments that we see that is contractually bargained in terms of what the benefits are. But the one thing that's specific to New York State is New York State does not allow you to build a trust to help fund that. So what all local governments wind up doing is paying as they go. Whatever the costs are in that year, that's what you pay. You can't accumulate any monies in a trust. And so what that means all throughout New York State is this large liability without assets. Now, it's the net present value of future payments. It's not payable immediately. It's long term. But that, a lot of times there's some sticker shock when people look at a negative net position or your equity, you have negative. That's very consistent throughout New York State because of the way that they don't allow you to fund that other than fund as you go. So just wanted to point that out because we see that negative number and you're concerned with it. It is something that we see all throughout New York State. So additional trend analysis, Heather on the last slide showed 4 years of your revenues and your expenditures. So since 2019, the revenues have increased 18%, a combination of real property taxes, non-property taxes, which mainly sales tax, some fines and forfeitures, and federal revenues. And your expenditures have increased 5% from 2019, which included increases in employee benefits and general governmental support, along with transfers for debt service. Overall, resulting in a cumulative increase of fund balance of $11 million since 2019, which, as noted here, it was a negative unassigned fund balance in 2019 of $2.9 million, which is now $10 million in 2022. So you went from a negative unassigned fund balance and you've grown that to have a cushion, if you will, and have some unassigned fund balance on the city's books. Additionally, the city paid off the deficit note of $4 million in 2022. And we noted that GASB 87, or the lease standard, required you to put on your books this year a lease receivable and deferred inflow. The deferred inflow is the offset to that in the amount of $7.2 million. So that's something that was not on your balance sheet previously, now is as required under the standard. So now the management letter comments, we did note that there was a significant deficiency this year. So as Heather mentioned before, there are different classifications of internal control deficiencies and other matters. The highest level is a material weakness. That's a weakness in your internal controls whereby in the normal course of your controls, you would not timely detect and or correct a material error or fraud in your statements. You did not have any material weaknesses this year. As mentioned last year, there was a finding that we had that was resolved. So nothing at the material weakness level. The next level is what they call a significant deficiency. And that is classified as less than a material weakness, but still warranting notice to the governing board. So we did note this year that there were delays in closing the books due to staffing issues, which resulted in delays in the audit process. So ultimately, we were able to receive all the information that we requested, and we did not come across any material errors in the information that was provided, but it did delay the audit in terms of the timing of when we could get that information. So when you look at that definition of being able to detect and correct in a timely fashion, we looked at that and said, okay, not quite a material weakness. There were no errors that we noted that were material, but still something that we felt was noteworthy. Internal control and other matters, we did mention under the STOA program for DOT, rider tracking, that clickers are used and recorded on a tracking sheet manually, and there's a manual process which is susceptible to error when it's manual. So you'll see there's a little bit of a trend here on some of those comments where we're talking about manual reconciliations and such, where it's better to automate some of those or include those within your fiscal software.
So as Tim mentioned, these are kind of manual, and these are also repeat comments, I believe, from previous years. However, just to let you know, there is a plan in place to get some automation to these systems to make them more efficient. The payroll time entry, handwritten timesheets, or time cards, which are manually entered. Again, there's benefits and efficiencies to have an electronic timekeeping system and a capital asset tracking system as well. No tagging, it's manual. In order to keep, things and know what you have, it's better to have a automated process. So the single audit under uniform guidance, and FEMA alluded to it, that federal dollars, if they're over a certain threshold, are required to have a compliance audit under uniform guidance. So this year we audited the CDBG-DR program. I know there's a lot of letters here. The COVID Treasury funds. There was an unmodified opinion for your single audit, no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies noted, and there were no compliance findings in your major programs. And also, along with the single audit, you have to have a state single audit if you spend a certain amount of DOT funds. The STOA program was tested here, and there were no compliance findings related to your STOA program.
So we do want to thank the city and the business office for all of their assistance during the audit. With that, those are the high-level findings and results
Sir,
of the
can
audit.
you just-
But we're open to
Sir?
any questions that the board may have. My apologies.
Could you repeat that again?
Yes, absolutely. We want to thank the city as well as the business office for all their help during the audit. This is a high-level results of the audit, but we're open to any questions that the council may have of us.
For those that,
Do you want to
don't speak accounting. Could you kind of just summarize, how are we doing? How have we been trending the last few years?
Sure. So at a very high level, in terms of how the city is trending, we did mention before that you've gone from, for instance, that negative 2.9 million in unassigned fund balance to 10 million. That is trending in the right direction. You want to have some reserves, you want to have some fund balance. So the city has made up some of that ground over the last few years. Additionally, I think 4 years ago, if you were to look at your report, you had a few significant deficiencies and material weaknesses. The city has worked through those and corrected many of those. So from a findings standpoint, certainly moving in the right direction. You've had in recent years, but also this year, unmodified opinions on your financial statements, your uniform guidance or federal compliance audit, and DOT audits. So what that means on all of those audits is where we as the auditors are issuing an opinion, we issued the highest level of assurance that you can obtain, which means there was no qualifications on the report. We found that they were materially fairly stated.
Okay, so basically we've improved in the last 3 years and we're going in the right direction.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any other questions from the council members?
Yes, it just, on the fund balance, I'm just trying to understand that. We have a certain amount of revenue, we have a certain amount of expenditures, and the rest goes into the fund balance. Is that correct, the way this is?
Could you say that again? I'm sorry.
The way the slide reads, it has audit of the fund balance for all governmental funds increased 2.4 million. What does that mean? It increased 2.4 million. That's over last year, or?
Yes.
So last year we had an $8 million fund balance?
Don't have it in.
That 2.4 is all your funds. And so we highlighted the general fund itself. So you would have, that 2.4 is a accumulation of your general fund, your capital fund, your debt service fund.
I'm looking at the unassigned fund balance.
So if you look at the next step, which is talking about the general fund itself, that unassigned fund balance, that doesn't take into account your reserves, okay? Or any of your things that you've put aside, right? It's just unassigned fund balance. That amount increased mainly as a result of revenues being over expenditures.
Yes.
Correct. And so it goes into fund balance. It's segregated, if you looked at your financial statements, between restricted fund balance and unassigned fund balance. There's also other terms in there.
Right. But this unassigned fund balance is 10.6. Now, the change in fund balance that is reflected in that slide, last year we had 6.57. The year before, 6.1 million.
Yep.
That is all unassigned fund balance?
No, it won't all be unassigned fund balance because you have to take into account your reserves. So it's based on what's left over after you fund your reserves.
All right, so there's no slide that actually tells us what the unassigned fund balance was.
That 10 million is your unassigned for general fund.
I'm sorry, this change in fund balance that you have here, that's unassigned or not?
Which the 6.6 million is the change in your unassigned fund balance.
All right, so that increased last year by 6.6.
Correct.
The year before it increased, the unassigned, by 6.1.
Well, we'd have to look back at last year's numbers because you have to take into account, you would have, if you looked at the trend, you had revenues over expenditures, but they all don't go to your unassigned.
So when this says change in fund balance, it doesn't mean...
That's change in total fund balance, not just unassigned.
But the last one means unassigned.
Yes, because your reserves did not change.
Okay. You can understand my confusion.
You'd have to look at the full statements to get
All right,
the full effect.
Karen?
Thank you. Roy and I serve on the audit committee for the council. So we meet with Heather and Tim throughout the year and ask questions to make sure that we are understanding and everything is on on course. Also, I just remember sitting here several years ago in the audience when we had someone up on the dais said that the auditors nobody wants to deal with the auditors, or they're bad. The auditors are not bad, and they are our friends, and they actually want to help us succeed. So I can say that they have been so responsive to my endless questions and concerns, and have really been a partner with Ina and the board to make sure that our financials are accurate, timely, and fair. So in terms of the net position, where Tim, thank you for explaining that a negative net position is customary for local municipalities and schools. I just wanted to point that out, that of the $246 million, approximately $153 million is post-employment benefits. Again, $153 million is post-employment benefits to be paid out on a pay-as-you-go over the future. So that's for employees that are current employees, and that is for former employees and their families. Again, $153 million of the city's long-term liabilities right now is employee benefits for the employees and their families, and former employees and their families. So the council, as far as I know, cannot do anything about that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I wish I could, but we can't. Yes. Separate from that, I wanted to thank Tim and Heather for all of their work on the management letter. Personally, I view the management letter, of course, speaking for myself, as sort of a report card on how the council is doing, or how I am doing as a council member. Because the auditors are instructing us and advising us on what we can do and what items we should look for to address in terms of what we should be advising the senior administration, or at least discussing with them. And I'm very proud of all of the work that we have accomplished and the work that is in progress. And that work that is in progress, including staffing up the accounting department, implementing a payroll time entry system, which again, the New York State Comptroller's Office recommended that we do in their December 2019 report in terms of the city's finances. So basically, the Comptroller's Office and our auditors are watching us to making sure to guide this council to do our jobs. Finally, it's a capital asset tracking system as well that we need to put in place to track our assets. So with that said, the management letter will be available online, and it gives the information that the auditors have presented and their advice, but also Ina and her team have responded, i.e. there's a management response, so that we could all hold each other accountable to make sure that we get these things implemented. I haven't spoken with Roy previously, but I will let Roy chime in, but it is my recommendation that, again, unofficially, we accept the auditor's report and thank them for all their hard work.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, because what Karen says is right. You guys are a pleasure to work with. I know our numbers aren't always a pleasure to work with, but we're working on that. And, Ina's doing a good job trying to get a handle on that, so the problems we had this year won't repeat themselves. So, thank you.
Okay. Any more questions from the council members? All right, any questions from the public? All right, seeing none, let's move on to the next item. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 2 has been voted on already. Item 3 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to purchase a valve maintenance trailer from the lowest responsible bidder.
We're going to have Joe Fabrizio come up on this and explain it.
Thank you. I highly recommend that the city manager authorize the purchase of the valve maintenance trailer from Ferguson Waterworks in the amount of $92,434.68. Currently, water valves in this distribution system are maintained by hand. Turning valves by hand takes tremendous effort and can cause unnecessary injury to the maintenance crew. The valve maintenance trailer contains power valve operators that automatically exercise the valves. It essentially works the valve back and forth, removing buildup and extending the life. An effective valve maintenance program is vital for the water delivery network. Knowing where valves are located and ensuring that they operate as designed or work during emergencies is essential. Exercising valves regularly will extend their useful life. In an emergency, having valves that work as expected can reduce water loss, minimize damage and flooding, and prevent consumer disruption. I have Mike Longin here, who's the superintendent of the Water Transmission Department, who's also here to assist if there's any specific questions regarding this equipment. Our water department is, I think, one of the best on Long Island. They do so many things that other communities can't do in-house. Like they have what's called a valve insertion machine, where they can machine where they can insert valves manually in the system. They have a line stop machine where they could actually put a plug in the water system to stop the water. They install water services, hydrants. I mean, they really do a tremendous job and can be commended. This piece of equipment is common, and it has other water departments do have it. If anybody's ever seen them have to work a valve in the field, there's generally like a giant key that you put down on top of like a 16-inch valve or a 12-inch valve. And generally they have like maybe 30 turns, 40 turns, and two guys have to basically twist it. And it's an arduous process. So they really should have a machine that does it for them. It'll enhance our maintenance program. So if you have any specific questions about it, I'd like to take them. And Mike is here as well, who can hopefully help me. Okay. But we recommend purchasing this equipment.
Okay. Any questions from the council?
Yeah, Joe, it seems to me, in turning something, you usually use a series of gears. That's why, a single person can roll up a 10-ton boat, because it's all gears. It goes slow. How come there's nothing like that to turn a valve?
That's what this is.
Well, that's what this is. In other words, typically, right now they do it manually. So
But they're doing it manually without gears. They're doing it manually turning the actual valve.
Correct.
And if you put a plate on with a gear and a little crank, wouldn't that do the same thing?
Well, that's what this is. It's called the valve maintenance trailer. It's actually a machine that you hook up to the valve, and it will work. It won't break it. It works it back and forth, and then will raise and lower it mechanically, as opposed to doing it. Doing it through the machine, as opposed to doing it manually. And I think it's something that they could really use.
Sir, can Mike?
Yeah, why don't you come up, Mike? Yeah, maybe you could give a little more background too. Thank you.
Hi. Basically, what the machine is,
put the microphone.
Sorry. Basically, what the machine is, it's a container. It has an engine on it. It has a vacuum. It has a power washer, and also has an arm that comes out and then extends out and goes down to after we clean it, and maintains the valve. Actually exercises it. Goes up and down on it 3 or 4 times now. We haven't done this in a long time. I started here in '96, and we've never done it. And that's something that we have to do. For example, when Engel Berman started doing that construction site, we found a few valves that were frozen.
Okay, so just to keep it short.
Okay.
This doesn't just turn the valve.
Oh, yeah.
It cleans it. It does also. Okay,
It would vacuum out
that's
the
why
dirt.
I was wondering, because I was told
Yes.
all it does is turn the valve.
No.
Okay, thank you
No,
so
it's-
much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions from the council?
Just one. I just wanted to know, how long did you say the life of the machine is?
That's a good question, Mike. Do you know what's the lifespan of the equipment, roughly?
This one machine? Wow, okay.
Mike is going to maintain it and make it last forever. All right. You heard it here. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, good, that's good.
All right. Any other questions from the council? All right. Any questions from the public on this? All right. Seeing none. Next agenda item. Thank you.
Item 4 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to participate in a cooperative bid coordinated by the Board of Cooperative Educational Services of Nassau County.
So this particular item actually enables us to participate in and become a part of the cooperative with BOCES. BOCES puts out bids throughout the year for an entire assortment of different products and services as well, from crayons to air conditioners to buses to vehicles, you name it. They pretty much put a bid out for it. It's an opportunity for the city to save money in that we'll be able to compare the pricing that BOCES actually secures on their bids versus either our own bid or the other types of services like Sourcewell or state bidding process or in other municipalities. And fairly recently, we were not actually part of the cooperative bidding process with BOCES, and it was an opportunity for us to save some money that we couldn't take advantage of. So this gives us those opportunities.
Okay, any questions from the council? Seeing none, any questions from the public? Okay, on to item 5.
Item 5 is a resolution authorizing budget amendment to the general fund budget.
So Joe Brand?
Joe, are the Rangers winning? Yes. Thank you.
We're waiting to watch it. Quite simply, this amendment this evening is just to have the funding that we were awarded from MSG and the New York Rangers through the rink refurbishment agreement that we got from the Rangers. This is the balance of that $45,000 minus the signs that were put up on Emil Francis Memorial Ice Arena for us to use at the arena for the intended use in that agreement. That's it.
Joe, I guess you were spending it on repairs and equipment. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, within the agreement, there are several projects that are earmarked: locker room refurbishment, some painting, some cosmetic, Zamboni work, signage, and then public equipment.
Isn't there Zamboni? Didn't we just get a new Zamboni? No. Not yet.
We're going to be getting one soon.
Yeah.
Denise Ford's helping us with that one.
This is additional funding to keep what we have here operable until that gets here, but more importantly, to put more work into the building that it needs.
So it's mostly for the building?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
building and equipment.
All right. Thank you.
All right, any other questions from the council? Any questions from the public? All right, seeing none, on to item 6.
Item 6 is a resolution authorizing transfer of funds for the 22-23 fiscal year.
So this is basically just a budget transfer to enable the city to pay for the salary of a CDBG-related employee and to enable us to actually get reimbursement for a portion of that salary.
Okay, any questions from the council? Any from the public? Okay, on to item 7.
Item 7 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager and the city controller to transfer funds within the 22-23 budget.
Actually, this one, Mr. President, this one actually has a proposed amendment. So currently there are 2 resolved clauses. After the first resolved clause, we want to include another clause that says, that after the wording that says, and it be further, we want to add, resolved that the city comptroller shall provide the city council with weekly reports regarding such transfers between the dates of April 19th, 2023 and June 20th, 2023, semicolon, and be it further prior to the last resolved clause.
Do we have a motion to make this change?
So moved.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Okay, proceed.
So I don't know if Ina wants to come up and explain this any further, but this is basically at the end of the year, it gives the departments the ability to move funds between different accounts within those departments for year-end accounting purposes and to ensure that the city can balance each department's, I guess you would say, finances.
Okay, Any questions from the council? Any questions from the public?
I'm sorry, John. I just did want to thank Ina for giving us the weekly reports in the future. I know it's extra work, but, you know, it's part of our chore, our job to be looking at these things, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
I would like to point out to Mr. Bendo that the addition of that adds an additional level of transparency for the board, the city council, that had not existed prior, and we're happy to do it.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions from the public? All right, seeing none, on to item 8.
Item 8 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager and city council to enter into an employment contract with the city controller.
These are the employment contracts that were authorized by in the city charter, and this one and the next one are the two that are up for this particular council meeting. The council has had the opportunity to review.
Any questions from the council? Seeing none, any questions from the public? Okay, seeing none, on to item 9.
Item 9 is a resolution confirming the appointment of a corporation counsel and authorizing the acting city manager and city council to enter into an employment contract with the corporation counsel.
As prior explained, it's pretty much the same thing.
Okay, this one's for the corporation council, so any questions from the council? Any questions from the public? All right, seeing none, on to item 10.
Item 10 is a resolution fixing and providing for the 2023 season of the Ocean Beach Park.
So the item before you just basically outlines the dates of operation that the beach will be open this year. Pretty standard that it's done each year. I don't know if there's any further questions that you have on the actual dates. Joe Brand's here just in case you do have any other additional questions.
All right, any questions from the council? Any questions from the public? Okay, seeing none, on to item 11.
Item 11 is a resolution authorizing publication of the general summary of the capital improvement program for the next 5 years and authorizing the publication of the general summary of the proposed budget for the year July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024, and notice of public hearings thereon. This item is a publication only. The capital plan hearing will be May 16th at 7 p.m., and the budget hearings will be May 2nd and May 16th at 7 p.m. Item 12 is a resolution authorizing publication for hearing of an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding various fines and fees. This item is for publication only. A hearing will be held May 2nd at 7 p.m. Item 13 is a resolution authorizing publication for hearing of an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding motor vehicles and traffic. This item is for publication only. A hearing will be held May 2nd at 7 p.m. Item 14 is approval of minutes of April 4th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
I move.
Second. Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Okay, on to the voting. Item 2 has already been voted on. Item 3 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to purchase a valve maintenance trailer from the lowest responsible bidder. Introduce and move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second.
So who'd you get for the first?
Thought I got first, second, okay. Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
As a person that's turned a lot of valves in their career, yes.
Item,
Thank you, Mike.
item 4 is a resolution authorizing the City of Long Beach to participate in a cooperative bid coordinated by the Board of Cooperative Educational Services of Nassau County. Introduce and move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item 5 is a resolution authorizing budget amendment to the general fund budget. Introduce and move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item 6 is a resolution authorizing transfer of funds for the 2022-23 fiscal year. Introduce and move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item 7 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager and the city controller to transfer funds within the 2022-23 budget. Who introduce and move the adoption of this item as amended?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis.
Yes, as long as I get those weekly reports.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item 8 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager and city council to enter into an employment contract with the city controller. Introduce and move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis.
Undoubtedly, yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item 9 is a resolution confirming the appointment of a corporation council and authorizing the acting city manager and city council to enter into an employment contract with the corporation council. Introduce and move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis.
Resoundingly, yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes, we just hired Perry Mason.
Item 10 is a resolution fixing and providing for the 2023 season of the Ocean Beach Park. Who will introduce and move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item, oops, wrong page. Item 11 is a resolution authorizing publication of the general summary of the capital improvement program for the next 5 years and authorizing publication of the general summary of the proposed budget for the year July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024, and notice of public hearings thereon. Introduce and move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item 12 is a resolution authorizing publication for hearing of an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding various fines and fees. Introduce and move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
I've reviewed this pretty thoroughly, and I'm finding some increase in the fees, specifically when it comes to the beach, to something that I don't think is appropriate. I'm going to vote no, and hopefully we can change things so that this can be reintroduced, well, or at least brought up at the hearing, and see what we can do about it. Thank you.
Councilmember McGinnis.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Item 13 is a resolution authorizing publication for hearing of an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding motor vehicles and traffic. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
The City Manager's monthly personnel report has been filed by the City Clerk. Who will make a motion to close the meeting?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember McGinnis.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President Bendo.
Yes.
Okay. Stand by.
Okay, now we will go into good and welfare. In case you're new to good and welfare, you get 3 minutes to speak. And okay. And we will start with Mary Balasevich.
I had a feeling.
Hi, Mary Valasevich, Long Beach. I'm here tonight, right now, as Northeast Bay and Canal. Number one, what are we doing about the auxiliary police building that's vacant since Sandy?
So I actually can explain that because I've had numerous conversations with Joe Fabrizio about it. So, Mary? Hey. So basically what we're trying to do with that building is we're evaluating it for a rebuild. It is a relatively expensive item. It is currently included in our capital project for next year. And the goal there would be to actually move the auxiliary police back into their building, refurbish the building, as well as turn the trailer that's at the butt end of, I guess it's Laurelton, to become the specials trailer and a trailer for the police department to use during the summer months, and eventually eliminate the trailer that's on the lot there for the beach park. Yeah, that's private property that been loaned to us. Eventually, that's going to be sold anyway. So it is definitely on the agenda to be looked at. The thing that we're really dealing with right now is deciding what projects are actually going to be.
Wasn't there something with wires or something
So
under the ground?
within that structure and in like a sub-basement or a basement of that structure, there's a considerable amount of utilities, which rendered it basically very difficult to sell the property. So we're going to refurbish it and put it back to use for the auxiliary police.
Okay. All right. And now moving on, I'm still Northeast Bay. Joe, I'd like to thank you. Doyle Street came out beautifully, and those people really needed that done. So thank you very much.
And Clark and Curly.
Pardon me? And Curly.
Clark and Curly,
Yes,
yeah.
Curly. That was just repaved, right?
Yeah.
But the other, Doyle, was all new, everything new. All right, I thank you for that, and there was something else, and I can't think of it now, but it'll come to me eventually. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. Brendan Finn.
Good evening, everybody. Brendan Finn, 114 Grand Boulevard. Commissioner Walsh and the council, you answered a few of my questions very early on. Came here to speak about the wind farms. Commissioner, you said last meeting, if the goal was to stop wind farms, the time to get involved was 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. And, you know, that was pretty astute statement, I think. But in 2020, Kathleen Rice and Todd Kaminsky had they did an event on the boardwalk where they announced the initiative, August of 2020, so it was COVID time. So the council's been aware of this. Well, not you, Roy, because you weren't on the council then. Ms. Postolo, you weren't either, but the rest of you were. And I was wondering, did they inform you, or were you at the conference, at the press conference that day? I was there, but I didn't notice if you guys were there. There weren't a lot of people, and some people had masks on. But did they inform you about this prior to it? And then after the press conference and the initiative began, did they keep you informed and apprise you of what was going to happen and how it was going to go? And the reason I ask it this way is because in the last meeting, nobody really voiced an opinion on this. I think, Commissioner, you said that you're in favor of wind, and I think most people are if it doesn't impact us terribly. Unfortunately, it seems like it's going to impact Long Beach disproportionately to everybody else. But we're not going to get, I don't think we're going to get any benefits from that. So I don't know if we want to deal with the wires and the cables coming under the beach or through the beach under our streets, perhaps causing harm. We're not really sure. So I'm sure you've done your research, obviously, because you met with Equinor now, so I was going to ask that question. So really, are you going to advocate for Long Beach against that idea of, and you already said, there's all the different spots for it to come in all around Long Beach. I find it hard to believe that they can't go through the inlets, either one of the inlets. But that was brought up in the last meeting, so I'll let you answer.
Well, with regard to what the actual routes are, that is something that is done by the company that's making the proposal. They're the ones who make the decision as to what routes they want to take for whatever reasons. They're actually, they explained during the meeting that at what point in time they were talking about going. There's a lot of infrastructure out in the ocean right now. There's a considerable number of sewer lines. There's gas lines. Apparently you have the underwater transatlantic fiber optic cables, more than one. There's quite a bit of infrastructure out there. And the proposed route that they were going to do originally was to try and go around the barrier island, but because of the way all of these other infrastructures are there, it just wasn't feasible for them to do it. So then when they started to do their investigation, and this is them telling us, we were not, at least I don't think anybody on this council was involved in these discussions. They wouldn't have had any reason to be. They started to describe that the proposed route then was to come in a more direct line to where they want to put their power transmission lines and how it's going to tie into the rest of the grid. So all of the designs are through some portions of Long Beach. Not the barrier island, specifically Long Beach. And I looked at a map of a bunch of those, and actually Councilwoman McGinnis actually provided me that particular map during the meeting. And, the say on what the route is not something that we have input on. This is the company that does it themselves as part of a business plan. Not the Public Service Commission, the one that approves the federal.
You said it goes through Article 7.
Well, Article 7 is the Public Service Commission, right? So
New York State Public Service Commission, that's
Right.
where the Empire Wind 2 project
Correct.
is now. And I'm going to highly recommend everyone become a party so that you get the information firsthand. You can see residents and their comments. So I am not a spokesman for Equinor, nor is anyone here.
No, you're a spokesman for Long Beach.
Correct.
That's
Right.
So I
So
wanna
in
make
the
sure
last
that
meeting,
everyone-
nobody seemed to have an opinion on that. And that's, I think, caused some consternation amongst, the audience, because we expect the council to advocate one way or the other. I forget who said it, perhaps you did, Ms. McInnes, that you didn't have an opinion yet because you had to do more research.
And
I gotta leave? It's
Yeah,
gonna
your time is
blow
up.
up?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a trapdoor.
So on my way,
Thank
right. It's a drunk tank, right? So on my way out the door, I just want to ask, does the governor and the governor's management, are they pushing this project down our throats or down your throats and somehow holding funds hostage?
So,
No.
okay, so when you say funds, I don't know what funds you're referring to.
Neither do I.
But as far as, does the state want this? Yes, New York has a very aggressive plan to develop offshore wind. The two projects they're proposing off of our coast are two of many that are being proposed off of New Jersey, kind of where Sandy Hook and Long Island, so there's going to be some off of New Jersey, and they're going out east all the way to Massachusetts. So
some 9,000 of them.
so there is, it's not just New York, Massachusetts as well, other states
Right, Cape Wind.
have decided that this is a direction they want to go in terms of green energy to wean themselves off of fossil fuels as much as possible. New York State has been doing that for some time. We've shut down, I believe it's all but one coal plant now in the state, but many of them have been replaced by other fossil, mainly oil or gas. So New York is looking to move to greener sources. So this is how they're doing it. So, and I know you want more, but we
We
have
just
other
need you
people.
to advocate on behalf of us. If they want it, we don't necessarily want it because it's going to upset our city.
That's fine. And we understand our
Okay.
opinion may not be the same as the state's.
That's right. I hope so.
So.
Thank you.
Tim Kramer.
Tim Kramer, 361 East Broadway. I would like to address some falsehoods that continue to float around about wind advocacy and highlight what is nothing less than an existential threat to our coastline and our national sovereignty. Supporters of offshore wind claim that it's a necessary step in order to transition the United States to clean energy, yet oddly enough, BOEM's own environmental impact statement admits that offshore wind will have no impact of any substance in combating climate change and will in fact increase greenhouse gas emissions. Supporters say that it will stimulate economic activity and create thousands of jobs, yet offshore wind turbines are being manufactured in Europe and China and not in the United States. Wind companies are attempting to circumvent laws so that they can use cheaper foreign vessels and cheaper crews, plus BOEM has admitted that commercial fisheries will have to completely abandon their fishing grounds as the result of offshore wind. Destroying one job to create another job is not job creation. Let's talk about the offshore wind companies themselves. Ørsted, who is building offshore wind turbines off the New Jersey coast, is based in Denmark and used to go by the name Danish Oil and Natural Gas. Equinor is looking to industrialize our shore, is based in Norway, and is a petroleum refining company. BP, who is building offshore wind turbines off New York and Massachusetts, is based in the country of England. These foreign-owned companies have bought millions, not thousands, millions of acres of the Atlantic Ocean and are looking to expand into the Gulf, the Pacific Ocean, and our Great Lakes as well. Every body of water in this country will now be at the mercy of foreign-owned energy companies. More than 50% of our energy, if this plan goes to fruition, will come from foreign countries. We would rely on them and be under their control. This is shameful. Equinor says that surveying and construction of these offshore wind farms is not resulting in marine mammal deaths. So that begs the question, why is BOEM offering incidental take authorizations to these companies? And for those who don't know what that means, an incidental take is the accidental harming or killing of a marine species. And it's not just whales, it's dolphins and other marine life. When companies need these authorized murder allowances, it's because these industrial wind grids are leased right on top of the foraging grounds and migration routes for the most critically endangered North Atlantic right whales. BOEM's own scientists have sounded the alarms on how these projects will affect whales for many decades to come. I would just like to say I stole these words from the great Jeff Van Drew, U.S. Congressman from New Jersey. And I just have to ask, last week, we had the...
Need you to wrap up.
Okay. Last week we had the 2016, 17, 18, that whole comment. At what point did the City of Long Beach inform or educate its citizens on what was to come and what was happening out here? Because, I follow the news like no one's business, and I don't ever remember getting anything in the mail,
Okay.
anything at all.
I'll address that. So we find out when you find out. This process does not involve the city. The leases that are sold are done by the federal government, by the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management. The cable routing is done in federal waters till it hits 3 miles out. That is a state process. We don't get involved until they wanted it said they wanted to take the cable ashore in Long Beach. So any news we got was was from public news sources. We had no briefings from anyone. We had NYSERDA had come in at some point and did a public meeting here. So we had access to the same information as the public.
Assuming what you're saying is accurate for 1 second, then the comment 2 weeks ago that the time to argue was 2016, 17, 18, 20, then that would be incorrect. So either one of the stories is not correct.
It's not, again, the way the process
It's disappointing as a citizen that
So
this is going to...
It's a very, very bureaucratic process. So the first step is the federal part where they're selling the leases. And the public can provide comment and speak against selling those leases. That was back in that time. So that was one opportunity to stop it. Now we're in the opportunity where they're talking about the transmission line, and that's another opportunity.
So let me ask you a question. You have the most experience of anyone on this panel, I would assume, right? When did you find out about it? When did you catch wind, if don't pardon the pun, when this was?
Okay, well, if you want, we got a long pile here. If you want to stick after the meeting, I'm happy to talk to you. And
I do want to address one thing that you said, Mr. Kramer, as you walk back to your seat. The comment was not incorrect at all. What it was, the comment about 16, 17, 18, not incorrect even in the slightest. The argument about wind and whether or not wind is going to be coming to the United States is not this local government body's argument. So those decisions are made at a federal level and were made in 16, 17, 18, and are still ongoing now. The process as to when the city of Long Beach actually finds out is when Equinor decides where their transmissions line come around. They decided they're coming here. So that's not our process.
But I guess my point I'm trying to make is if it was the time to argue in years past, yet no one knew about it, then it's impossible to make that argument at that point. So,
well, I don't think anybody knew at the time until Equinor. So Equinor decides to purchase land leases in the federal government. And
I understand. You can't have it both ways. Either you make the argument now, or you can't make the argument.
Sorry, Mr. Kramer, if I could. I can't speak for prior to 2020. I wasn't working for the city by then. But I went back after the last meeting and counted, and every single meeting that BOEM held or hearing that BOEM held since I've been on staff here 2020, same thing with PSC, there are no less than 27 posts on our social media and on our website about this process. So, I know people didn't wake up necessarily to things until more recently, but we have informed the public about all of these things, at least since this is, please, decorum. This is I posted on a public page with 20,000 viewers.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say this for the last time. If people continue to interrupt while people are talking, we will clear the room, and only the people who will be allowed to speak are the people who are on good and welfare. We have to be conscious and very diplomatic in the way we do this. We fully understand that people have feelings about it, but we're not going to have people yelling out. We have to remain and compose ourselves in a proper way here. So please cooperate with us. Thank you.
Okay, Christina Kramer.
Hi, Christina Kramer, 361 East Broadway. So first of all, I just want to address my question early on. I wasn't being disrespectful. Clearly, I didn't understand the format. Every time we have one of these meetings, you have an agenda item. You say, is there questions from the council? And then you say, is there questions from the public? I had a question. You skipped over the part where you said, are there questions from the public? Now, maybe you don't do it that way because of this certain type of meeting, but there's no reason for you. You could have just said, this isn't that type of thing. I'm not being disrespectful. I don't understand the format. So,
Correct. We
anyway.
said that during the city manager's report, the public doesn't ask questions.
I honestly didn't know that. I was not trying to be interruptive. So it seems like a silly question now because the presentation is over, but I'm just asking, you're spending millions and millions of dollars on the infrastructure. I'm just wondering if we're going to consider redoing the water pipe infrastructure. We all buy filters because the water's brown consistently, and we were told the pipes are hundreds of years old. That's been going on for decades. So I'm wondering, are we going to address the infrastructure of the drinking water in our community?
We can give you an answer to that
Yes.
tonight.
The millions are from FEMA for the critical infrastructure project. It's 100% federally funded.
As part of the project, they're going to be replacing all of the utilities under the roadway, which includes the 16-inch diameter raw water main. When I say raw water main, that's the well water. So that comes from the well and it goes to the plant. That's not the drinking water. And then we also have the 12-inch diameter potable water main, which is going to be replaced as well. So all water mains under that parcel between Monroe Boulevard and the Waterfront Park are going to be replaced as part of the project.
But not the
I
drinking
suspect
water
you're-
to the residents?
Yeah, I think you're suspecting more about the pipes to the homes and that
Yes,
carries
that's
it.
exactly what I'm talking about.
That results in the brown water because of the iron buildup.
Right, yeah, I mean, there's 55 miles of water mains in the city, but that basically correlates to the 55 miles of roads that's in the city, since a water main does run down each street. So, I mean, we generally, absent this project, we typically do 1 to 2 complete streets programs a year, which is like Doyle, for example, where we just replaced 1,000 linear feet of water main. We did Boyd Street, we replaced 1,000 linear feet of water main. It's a slow process. Next year, we're going to be doing the Walks Phase 1 project, where we're going to be abandoning all the 4-inch diameter water mains that run behind the houses and putting in new 8-inch diameter water mains in the streets and abandoning all of those 4s. So, I mean, it's an ongoing process. We can't do all of them at once, although it would be cost prohibitive, but we have a commitment internally to address the city's water system.
So Ms. Kramer, just to give you an idea, like the water main in the walks that we're funding, just that small section of the city is $4 million. So when you multiply that across the entirety of the city, you're talking $100 million.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
over the course of decades, it needs to get addressed.
Agreed. And the plant, we're working on the planning of all of that infrastructure replacement now. It probably should have started 40 years ago.
Okay, I know my time is running out here. I just wanted to say that as far as the Article 7 goes, there were 229 posts on the comments. 74% of the people who posted there are opposed to the lines coming through Long Beach. It doesn't matter whether or not you, as the council members, are opposed or with turbines. You need to speak for your residents, and we are saying we don't want this. And John Bendo, you said it last week. They had a way to go around, but it was complicated, red tape. If there's not an alternative route, they need to make an alternative route. We don't want it here. Thank you. Have a good night.
Cooper Kramer. All right, it's a family affair tonight.
Hello, Cooper Kramer, 3620 East Broadway. So, as stated before, the council said that they met with Equinor individually or in groups of 2. If we're going to go and talk in terms of war, I think that this company is using divide and conquer tactics to slowly persuade the council. I also think that it's an opportunity for corruption for you guys to not move as a unit and to represent the town in totality as a group. Also, if the lines are going underneath the water for miles from the, what's it called? I apologize, the turbines. Why can't they just run underwater by Atlantic or Point Lookout and then continue to industrial areas on the other side of Reynolds Channel?
Great.
And then also third, this is more of a suggestion. We don't get our, our pipes replaced often because they're deep underground underneath roads and it's hard to access these pipes. What if we invested in above ground water lines so that they could be changed more frequently and be using more renewable materials that don't rust.
Okay.
So,
So,
just to let you know, Cooper, the reason why the council actually meets 2 by 2 and in 1 is actually the sunshine laws of New York State. They're not allowed to meet 3 or more because then they have a quorum, and anything that they did with a quorum would have to be an open public meeting like this. So when they're going to meet with a corporation or something like that, so that everybody gets the same information, they 2, 2, and 1 is the way they meet. It's to be in compliance with the law.
Understood.
Thank you.
And as for the lines running through the town and not on the outsides of the community, why does these industrial power lines need to go through civilian sections?
It's the route that Equinor chose.
that's the
Yeah.
route that they have applied to do.
For, right.
I looked at their application. They did propose alternate routes that went, to your point, through water, through Jones Beach Inlet, and another went across Lido by the beach and across the empty parkland. And in effect, New York State bureaucracy makes it easier to go through people
Mhm.
than parkland.
The other thing, too, is that if this particular route that they're dealing with now gets voted down, they go to the next route in their proposed plan, which is also through Long Beach.
Okay.
All right. Was that your first time?
Yes.
Good job.
Did very well.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Did good.
Thank you.
All right. Irene Price.
Hello, this is also my first time, even though I'm 57 almost. My name is Irene Price, and I live at 372 East Harrison Street, which is the current preferred route of the Empire Wind high voltage cables. Thank you for the time today. I'm not much of a public speaker, but I need to be heard. As this Equinor Empire Wind Farm is a huge concern for me and my family, I am for clean energy, but not at the potential risk of our health. Equinor reps were quite happy at the Atlantic Beach open house to tell us that there are already high voltage cables running through the middle of Nassau County, much like the ones they're planning on running smack through our beautiful community, so that makes it okay. But no, it's not okay. That cable has only been in place for a few years, and that is not time enough to do long-term research, and I'm talking 12 to 15, 20 years worth, on how this will be affecting the local community's health with upticks in cancer and other health-related issues. We as a community recycle, install solar panels. On some places we use environmental friendly cleaning products. We do beach cleanups and take other steps to protect our planet in sustainable ways. These are our choices to make, to do our part. You as our elected council officials are in the position to do the same, to serve and protect us by making the correct decisions for our health and well-being. Respectfully, we hope that you take the time and do your due diligence and come to the same conclusion that running a low-frequency EMF cable through our community is a terrible idea. As a daughter of a mother who died of breast cancer, you must understand I'm very concerned that the proper long-term research has not been done, and without that, you cannot deem this safe. I will not allow these cables to be laid under our homes and potentially be mine or my 4 daughters' catalyst for breast cancer or other issues. Please make the right decision. Unfortunately, I just now understand it's not your decision to make. Don't sell us out. We will not be the path of least resistance, which I feel that is what Equinor is making. We are the path of least resistance, clearly. I will get involved with the Public Service Commission for certain, Article 7, and thank you for listening tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Charlie Price.
Good evening. Charlie Price, 372 East Harrison Street. I am against the Equinor Empire Wind Farm. and I believe it will be an utter disaster for the ocean, the beach, the marine life, and the citizens of Long Beach. But my biggest concern is the lack of concern from the elected officials over the impact of what the wind farm could mean to our health. I live streamed the previous city council meeting and was appalled at the lack of knowledge of what the impact of this project could be for our community and the fact that none of you had an opinion. I cannot believe you see the plan of a high voltage cable land on our shore, which is 100% residential, and you don't have an opinion. I cannot believe the route of the cable will be to land on Riverside Boulevard, one of our most used and popular beaches, and you had no opinion. I cannot believe you are watching 3 brand new buildings, the largest development in the history of the city, being built at Riverside, and you had no opinion on the impact of this project. I cannot believe you see the route of this cable run through the beach, proceed on Broadway, turn on Lincoln, down East Harrison, one of the most traveled roads in the city, and you had no opinion. I want to believe that after you do your research, you will come to the same conclusion we have and deem a different route for this cable and do not allow this project to move forward without that route. Someone like Reynolds Channel or through Lido or uninhabited areas. I want to believe the independent consultants you hired will provide an unbiased opinion and one that will result in the same conclusion that the current preferred route is dangerous, ill-advised, and a very bad decision for our community for which you serve. I want to believe that our elected officials will do what they have been elected to do, which is to serve and protect the citizens of Long Beach. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Happy himself, Ron Paganini.
Ron Paganini, 62 Harmon Street, Long Beach. I am against the mills. And by the way, out of the 5 windmills off of Block Island, 4 of them are down with stress cracks for a year already. There's only one working, so that's how good they're made, right? Anyway, I'm on a different note. I might not even be here in about 4 years with the taxes. So let's work on the taxes here a little. I have some suggestions here, and I'm going to say, like, what's in the best interest of the city? Okay. You know, I picked the fire department not because it's their fault. You know, I do blame the city, and I blame the past administrations because they don't have a spine. Well, we're suffering. So I picked the fire department because it's the biggest abuser of overtime. 19 employees had $1.5 million in overtime. 19. Okay? And some of them make them up to $400,000 now, I think. Right, Mr. City Manager? You're up to, I mean, they're around 400 grand.
It's going to wind up being that, yes.
Yeah, okay. Wonderful. Not your fault.
Not wonderful.
So, I mean, let's take the paid firefighters. Is it in the best interest of the taxpayer to work 24/7? Where am I here? Is it best to work 24/7, 365 days a year to wait for fires and false alarms? That accounts for only about 15% of their calls. When our volunteers can cover those calls and save a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars. They can do it, they're certified, they know what they're doing. This is a suggestion. Most of the calls to the fire department are EMS calls. That's about 85% of their work. It makes sense. And no one would be laid off, I mean, to put them on the EMS calls. The employees who number 19 would be plenty to cover the EMS calls. By doing both firefighting and EMS calls has caused over $1.5 million in overtime. As the Haberman tax levy comes into effect, we're talking $610 the average. It could cost a lot of people $1,200. And don't forget the super block. The average is 2, could go to 4 for people. So add that up, and then you got your taxes and everything else. So, in July, the Habermans. So basically, I'd like to slow down to a more normal amount. If the city would hire another 10 firefighters, the cost to the city would be more than $1.5 million, closer to $2 million in cost. So that ain't gonna work. This issue is long overdue. You know, what's going on now must be solved by this council. The city manager needs the full will of this council.
All right, need you to wrap.
Okay.
Wind down.
Well, let's put it this way. It's in the best interest of the taxpayer if you guys can come together, save the firemen. Nobody wants layoffs, for them especially. Okay? They work hard. They'll have a full-time job. So that's my suggestions. I don't want to leave Long Beach.
Okay, thank you. All right. Judy Vining.
Judy Vining, Long Beach, here for Long Beach Aware, and you might be happy to have this topic change for a moment. I want to let you know that for Drug Take Back Day, we're also going to be there with the police department. Obviously, we've always partnered there. But this year we will have fentanyl test strips that have been made available to us through the Office of Substance Abuse Services. And so with 100,000 deaths last year alone from overdoses, and we have enough, we know, in our community that's not okay.
Judy,
So,
Judy?
Yep.
Can you just take a moment to, you know, I attend oh, sorry.
Okay, what do you want me to do?
You know, I attend most of your AWARE meetings. Can you just describe what a fentanyl strip is and what it would do for the public?
Okay.
Thank you.
It works two ways. The ones that Oasis was able to provide us with can be used as a urine screening if someone is concerned that a loved one or a family member is taking drugs that are laced with fentanyl. Or, since there are so many of the counterfeit pills on the market right now, the strip can be, the pill, I believe, can be put into water because nobody buys one pill, okay? So it's not like, and they can put it into water and then take the strip, and I don't remember the number of seconds, but I have it written down somewhere, and it will tell you if there's fentanyl in that pill. And that is the piece that is preventative. I mean, it is harm reduction, but you can't help somebody get clean and sober if they're dead. And that's really the bottom line. So there's that. I also want to tell you that on Saturday as well, we're participating in the health and wellness, mental health and wellness fair at the high school, which is from 12 to 3. And I'm losing my voice because the allergies are just wonderful. And it wouldn't be me if I didn't stand up and say that April is Alcohol Awareness Month. And one of the things that we need to be made aware of, if you weren't already this weekend, is that we really need to check the availability. When you have 14 and 15-year-old kids who have their hands on alcohol bottles, we need to know where they're getting them from. And at that age, it's probably at home. So that said, that still makes them in danger and vulnerable. So we have to also figure out a way to do an appropriate kind of party patrols. We had trainings for that probably before Sandy, and it might be time the city and the police department and the school district participate in that again, because these kids are not safe. We don't know if they're safe when they're running away. All I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you, Judy. Bill Phillips.
Hi, I'm Bill Phillips, 61 Oregon Street.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for all you guys for serving the city. I want to talk about the wind farms. Did a lot of research. Was going to come up here and talk about a lot of things, how, you know, negatively impacted may, you know, affect wildlife and the city and all that. But I guess it really doesn't matter at this point, if you guys have made clear. But I've done my research, and, you know, I am not for this. So, you know, this, you know, the website says construction starts January 2024. What is that, 7 months from now, 6 months from now? So I've done my research. I'm against it. You guys evidently have done your research. So, you know, randomly, Mr. Lester.
Yes.
Are you for or are you against this wind farm project?
You know, it's interesting you say we did our research. Do you know how much research there is out
Come
there?
on.
No, wait a second.
Okay.
Those were your words.
Yep.
Okay? I was a physics major my first year at NYU.
Okay, listen, I
okay?
have 3 minutes.
So,
I have 3 minutes.
No,
So
when I'm talking, it's
Yes,
my
it doesn't
time,
run
not
your
your
time.
time.
It doesn't run your
Okay.
time when he talks.
Oh, it
We
doesn't?
stop,
Okay,
no,
sorry.
stop the clock.
My
No.
apologies.
So you asked me the question.
Yep.
I am still looking into this. I am more concerned about EMFs than I am about whales or birds or anything like that. I do not want anything unsafe in this town. Tonight,
What is the best thing about this that you think? What is the main positive for you?
the stopping global warming.
Stopping global. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That is the main positive.
Okay, I'm with you on that.
And listen, we are going electric. The world is going electric.
Yeah. Ms.
You cannot-
Posterly, have you done your research on this? Are you for or are you against this?
I am for green energy, but I don't like the cable, the idea of the cable running through Long Beach. I have made that very clear when I
Right.
talk to
Okay.
different people.
Thank you.
So I'm
Thank you.
assessing it.
And Mr. Lupo, are you for or against
No,
this
no,
wind farm?
he's an employee.
My bad. Mr. Bendo, are you for or against the wind farm project in going through Long Beach?
So I work in the power industry, so I'm probably a little more informed than most on this. I do believe we need to transition away from fossil fuels. I believe this is one of the ways to do that. My issue, like others, is more the cable routing. You know, I've done my research too. I've attended offshore wind conferences.
Yep.
And it's not perfect. No technology is. So, but it is a...
Listen, it's inevitable. Are you for or against this wind project in Long Beach?
There is no wind
there is no
project
wind-
in Long Beach. There's a wind project 15 to 30 miles out in the ocean.
Emanating from Island Park going through our city. So are you...
What's
No,
emanating from
no.
Island Park?
The other one.
Cables going through our city, producing a wind farm out on
for
our
me-
beaches. Are you for or against that?
For me, the cables are the issue, coming through this city.
Right.
So, and I will, as I said earlier, when I made my comment about my forceful discussion with Equinor, I will tell you what I told Equinor is, whether I am for or against it, my opinion is not the one that counts, because my job is to represent the people of this city. And if the people of this city don't want it, then it is my job to represent that position.
Right, yes. So along those lines, and I'll leave the other three off the hook because I don't have enough time. I hope you're against it. I'm sure you are. Having discussions with Equinor makes no sense to me, right? Because they're like, why are we talking to Equinor? We should be, I think there were like 20 mayors in New Jersey who came together on the Jersey Shore, signed a letter, and are fighting this. Now, you know, Tim Kramer referenced Congressman Van Drew. He is in front of the the U.S. House of Representatives getting stuff passed because of the mayoral letter that was made, because of the citizens behind the mayors in New Jersey. So here we are, the citizens. Here we are talking to you guys, and you guys are talking to Equinor. Equinor could care less about what we want. Obviously, they're going ahead. New York State's giving them the green light. We should be talking to our representatives in New York State. Has anyone here spoken to our representatives in New York State and voiced your discontent, or you don't want this project? Has anyone gone to New York State from Long Beach, our representative from Long Beach, and gone to New York State and said to them, our citizens do not want this, how do we fight it?
So we have obviously had conversations with our state senator, with our congressman.
Who is your state senator? D'Esposito?
No.
State.
D'Esposito
State
is our
Senator
U.S.
Schumer?
Congress.
No.
No,
Teresa
that-
Fitzpatrick, or Canzaroni.
Patricia Canzaroni Fitzpatrick.
Teresa, I always say, yeah, sorry, Teresa.
And Ari Brown are our
Is Ari
state.
Brown, our Congressman D'Esposito, and as I said earlier in the night, I have called the governor's office several times now to beat up on them as well, and I will continue to do that.
Okay, all right. Well, we know we need you guys' help, because if you're all against it, then, we should all be against it and fight this, and, well, thank you for your time, and thank you for your service.
Okay. Rob Noble.
President Bendo, when you speak to the governor's office, I assume you're speaking on all of our behalf, or should each one of us call?
You could call if you like.
I assume you were speaking on all of our behalf. That's why I asked.
Well, not necessarily, because I can't
no
know
vote.
what everyone's opinion is on everything, so.
Good evening, Rob Noble. I live at 276 Jefferson, which is Harbor Isle. My wife and her 6 siblings grew up in Long Beach. 4 of them still own a home here. My father-in-law, Pete McCormick, was actually Long Beach Corporate Counsel in the 1970s, so I have a vested interest. Now, Councilman Bendel, please, first of all, thank you for having me, and please don't take this as a personal affront, but you say things that I continue to question. You mentioned at the last meeting that you're a nuclear engineer and you deal in facts. Is that correct?
Mhm.
And you mentioned at the previous meeting, when Empire was here, that Empire has told the city council that wind energy is very successful in Europe. Was that correct?
They can say that, sure.
Okay. So I went home and I Googled, and the first article that came up states, Europe's wind industry is stumbling when it's needed most. New York Times, November 2022. And that's a publication that would be in favor of green energy. The next article, Newsweek, October 2021. The wind turbine failures behind Europe's energy crisis are a warning for America. So clearly, it seems that wind energy has not been successful in Europe. But I found an article that I think touches on a lot of points, and it's worth reading. I only have 3 minutes. I wanted to ask questions, but this is from the Institute for Energy Research, and it states the Block Island offshore wind farm found that its high voltage cables that carry electricity to land were not buried deep enough and were being exposed as the seabed was being worn away by tides and storm, making the exposed cables dangerous to swimmers. So this was done by Ørsted. National Grid, which owns that cable that connects the island to the mainland, will charge customers of Narragansett Electric Company to fix its problem. They expect the cost to be $30 million, and it'll be determined through a surcharge on ratepayers' bills. What gets worse with this story is that Ørsted then admits that they have had problems in other countries. They identified 10 projects in the UK and Europe that use the same design and that may need repair. So what this demonstrates is these cables may be dangerous to our swimmers, that wind energy from the largest wind producer in Europe, Ørsted, has had numerous failures in 10 different countries. So it has not been successful. So, furthermore, are you aware of an organization called Save LBI? Is anybody aware of that organization? I am. Anybody on this council? So let me educate you.
Is that the one in
Save
New
Long
Jersey?
Beach.
Is that the one in New Jersey?
Yes, it's the
Yes,
one in
I
Jersey.
know.
I'm going to take another 30 seconds. It's being run by PhD in engineering Bob Stern. He's previously managed the U.S. Department of Energy, which was overseeing the protection of the environment related to energy projects. He has the support of 36 mayors on the Jersey shoreline. So when you say before that other municipalities are supporting this up and down the coastline, that's just not true.
I never said that.
You insinuated that
Don't
wind
put
energy-
words in my mouth.
Okay.
Do not put words
Maybe I
in my mouth.
misunderstood you.
I never said that.
Okay.
So,
Fair enough.
Is it what you were reading from? Is that the article itself, by any chance, that you're holding in your hand?
Yes.
Is it a copy that you could leave?
Yes,
I'd
it
like
is.
to read it.
Yes, it is. I'll leave it right here for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Dave, could we all have copies of that article?
I'll scan it and send it to everyone. Okay, Janet Cohen.
Good evening.
Hello. I'm here to, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm here to speak on behalf of the Horizon Shores residents to ask you to reconsider the $10,000 for a
Janet?
ticket taker for the upcoming
That was me, I called.
beach season.
Janet, it hasn't been, that's for publication, it hasn't been.
No, I know, but it's good and welfare.
So,
Yeah.
oh.
She can talk about it if she
Okay.
wants.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Can you restart her time, Dave?
I stopped it when you were
Thank you.
speaking.
You know how tough this is.
I know, I'm sorry, Janet.
You got it, Janet.
We understand paying for the beach taker is our responsibility. I was informed today that the fee was $10 an hour for the ticket taker, which comes out $1,600, $6,000. If the fee was $12 an hour, it would be $7,200. If it was $14, it would be $8,400. We have also been charged an additional 25% for the upkeep of the walkover. I can't do this. We have always paid that, but looking back at it, I have to ask now, why are our tax dollars not paying for the property owned by the city? The city pays for the cleaning of the boardwalk and other areas that I'm not going to mention tonight, but most of you know what I mean. We, the residents of Horizon Shores, would appreciate you looking at it again. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet.
Thanks, Janet.
Janet?
Jennifer Sarafin.
Janet, would you mind taking a couple of pictures of that part and send it to me? Thanks.
Hi. This is my first time talking. I've emailed a bunch of you. I'm Jennifer Sarafin, 107 Neptune Boulevard, Long Beach, New York. And I am kind of pretty upset. Again, you keep saying it's Equinor's decision, and I don't see where that happens because it's not Equinor's decision. They keep saying like New Jersey's fighting for us, so why aren't you fighting for us? I don't get.
We didn't say it was Equinor's decision.
Well, that's what
Wait,
Mr. Bendo said
wait.
like 5 times tonight. He did.
New York State.
No, New York State is doing the project, but he keeps saying it's Equinor's decision, the routing. So the reality of this is that it's Long Beach's decision whether they're going to accept Equinor's coming in and routing it. It's New York State has accepted the project, but none of this project would even be in Long Beach if it wasn't for Todd Kaminsky. I have the letter in my email that he wrote bringing it to our town. It wasn't even supposed to come here, which I guess in a way is a godsend because we wouldn't even know about it otherwise. My husband's a huge fisherman. He kind of thought it was a couple of windmills and New Jersey was getting the big thing. And then all of a sudden we've all been kind of dumbfounded by this year. And maybe that is our fault. Maybe I should have been at council meetings during COVID, watching them. But, you know, you're saying like 2020, 2019, it was COVID. Nobody knew what was going on. But I want to read something. I've been really trying to get active in this now, and I wrote to Anthony D'Esposito, and he immediately wrote me back that he's helping the people in New Jersey fight it. So when you say this stuff, we elected you people. You have to fight for us. This is our town. You don't have to, but you should. He immediately wrote back to me, I have serious reservations about the proposed Equinor project. The development would effectively be the landscape altering change to my hometown, and Equinor has failed to properly address the residents. The starting absence of transparency is an indicated lack of care for the Long Islanders and who love the South Shore. We must not allow corporate greed to hold communities hostage and tear apart the fabric of our hometown in order to make a quick buck. As our community local representative in Washington, D.C., I will always advocate for the interests of New York-04 neighbors, and above all else, the interests that include holding corporations like Equinor accountable. To the end, I am co-sponsoring legislation with my colleague, Representative Van Drew of New Jersey, that calls for a moratorium of a large-scale offshore wind projects until outstanding environmental and economic impact questions are sufficiently answered. And he's opposing it. So why can't you people be opposing it for the Long Beach community? Why do you keep saying that it's up to Equinor? I don't understand.
I guess I'm not sure if you, 60 seconds, 90 seconds ago, I said, my job is to represent the residents of the city.
You did finally say that after saying
that
it was up
wasn't the
to...
first time I've said it. I've said it at other meetings. So
Okay, well, I hope so. I hope you finally
that is
have our
my
back.
job.
Okay, thank you.
Arthur Schnee.
Arthur?
Good evening, City Council. My name is Arthur Schnee. I'm a visitor here, and I'd like to speak on behalf of the fishing and the safety of the waters. I know you directly don't have anything to do with what's happening in the ocean because that's through the federal government and the state, but it's impacting the fishing here and safety to the people that fish here recreational and also commercially. There's, as far as the fishing goes, there are some, these wind turbines are going to be detrimental to us for our fishing. Some of the species of fish that we fish for, we need uninterrupted drifts, and with these turbines are going to impede that. Also, we don't know, there's studies been done about the vibration and the noise and the EMFs and what that does to the fish. It chases them away, it impedes their communications. So it's very detrimental for fishing. As far as navigation, I'm very concerned about my safety. Fishing off of your beaches here, which I fish all the time. Love to come to Long Beach and fish right off here many times. During conditions of fog, it's going to create havoc on radar systems. Coast Guard systems won't be able to find us in the midst of turbines. Safety is going to be compromised. So we're very concerned about this. Also, the lights from it is going to also impede navigation because when you're coming in from the ocean, you're looking for the lights on the shore. We're going to be impeded by all the lights of these wind turbines. When you say that you can't do anything about it, that the routing of the cable is coming through and that you would lose money from it and they would just confiscate the land, well, you know what? You can stand up. You can tell them that we don't want it through here and make a statement and show the world that you're against this, okay? And there's too many things that, there's too many problems from this, and it has to start someplace. And you guys can do that because if they can't bring the cable through here, you're going to you're going to impede them, and they're going to have to take a closer look at things. So you can change things by using your voice. And I just want to leave with this. The world, Albert Einstein said this, and I'd like to read this to you. The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but those who watch them without doing anything. And you guys need to do something here and stop this. And it's coming through your city, and you're the ones that can stop it and get in the way of this. Thank you very much, Council.
Thank you. Kathlena Lolis.
Good evening.
Good
My name
evening.
is Kathleen Alalis, Long Beach. I'm going to switch it up a little bit, talk about the eviction meeting that I attended yesterday for the Long Beach MLK. And after all the speeches, I still have no idea what the meeting was about or what was actually accomplished by having it. But what I do know is if you keep doing the same thing, you will get the same results. Some people are so impressed by titles. Titles don't mean anything to me, especially if you sold our community and children for it. I've worked for and dined with New York City Department of Corrections, wardens, chiefs, and commissioners. I have a good friend who is best friends with Mayor Adams. I can name many ideas that were implemented to better the academy for new recruits and every facility my chief and I were over. When we were there, the stats changed for the better while maintaining transparency. I never wanted to be in the forefront. I didn't care if I didn't get the credit. All I cared about was making the difference. Photo ops doesn't mean anything to me. It seems that was all that was done yesterday. A lot of people and their titles were shouted out, the ringleader spoke, then boom, the photo op. One thing about me is you can't urinate on me and say it's raining. Someone said at the meeting yesterday, we don't vote. We do vote. We get who the community leaders want in on the city council, and what do they do for the North Park area? Nothing but give excuses. We get who the CSCA want in on the city council, and what do? Promote the people that supported them. Then these people get their promotions and their titles, then they walk around with their chest poked out. Meanwhile, our community and children are suffering. Why would we address an issue regarding a place for our youth in the 9th inning? Did this court proceeding happen overnight? What are our strategies? Where's our war room? I went to the city council meetings this summer, and not one of the people who are in uproar now were there. Not one request to address the city council good and welfare had anything to do with the North Park issues on it. Why is that? Lastly, how do we have a police commissioner that's also a city manager? In my dealings with him, he has poor leadership and lack of transparency. You mean to tell me that there's no competent people in Long Beach to be city manager? What this city is doing is disrespectful to our community and disrespectful to Martin Luther King Jr. I've stated many times I don't trust the police department, especially because of their leadership. My family and I don't feel safe, and I want that on record. We all, including the police department, need to be proactive instead of reactive. We always rally after something happens rather than rallying consistency for change. I have yet to hear anyone discuss mental health issues of the Long Beach people.
Okay, we need you to kind of wrap up. Your time has expired.
We all know it exists, and we all know that there's racism in Long Beach. Our children get arrested simply going to the West End, and instead of us fighting for change, we tell them don't go down there. That's not the solution. Everyone should look at themselves and say change starts with me. Change starts at home. Friday nights in my home is game night. Thank you.
Thank you. Eileen Hession. Oh, no Eileen?
No.
Tizazi Lee?
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's Tizelle. I'm here in reference to the Martin Luther King Center. I'm rather concerned. I'm not sure why there is a RFP. And also, how many times has this occurred that there was one of those things that you guys are doing? Because it seems like you guys want to take over the MLK. The MLK is a staple in our community. It has always had an effect within our community. And it seems that you say that it's not living up to what the expectation is of what you say it is. But we have a place where the MLK is a place for us, especially as African Americans, to have a place where we can feel comfortable at being who we are, you know, and our children attend there. And they've become very prosperous also. And I don't think that it's right that you guys should dictate who should be in the building when it's always been that way from the beginning. The MLK was created for us, you know, and you guys are sitting here and making a power move, which I don't think that you really should be doing. Maybe you should come together and work and collaborate with the MLK, but to just come and be Humphrey Bogart, that's not right. That is absolutely not right, you know, and it's like, I heard someone say something about rent, and you know, you guys are on live on YouTube or wherever it is, and trying to like throw dirt on them. You know, that's not right. It's absolutely not right. You know, everyone, if we really want to help the center, we really should come together as a community and say this is what we want, not bring somebody else in there. You know, like, I don't understand how you even came up with an idea like that. That's the Martin Luther King Center. That's the Martin Luther King Center. That's not for someone else to come in. That's us. That represents us. That's who we are. We come there, and they do. They have after-school programs. They have a lot of things that they offer to the community. You know, and if you have ideas, I think that it would be preferable that you would just come and meet with the executive director or the program director, or you guys come together. But to sit here and just think that that's cool. You know, that's like someone's coming to your house or coming here saying you're not doing your job, and this is what we want you. We want to get you out and bring someone else in. That's not right. It's not right. So for the RFP, is that the first time that that's ever occurred?
Sorry about that. When the city is engaged in business with an outside corporation like the MLK Incorporated, these things go out to bid, and they go out to bid to ensure that the city is getting the best value for the services that we're contracting for. I honestly don't know the last time that was bid out, but typically we have a 5-year maximum on these things, but sometimes they'll have a couple of extensions on them. The same thing goes for a lease of a building. I believe our city code says that you're allowed to lease property from the city for 5 years, and then it has to go back out to bid so that other people have the opportunity to come in and use the property. So
never have I ever
No, I
heard
don't believe
that.
it's happened in a very long
Yeah,
time.
never. And then it makes it appear like there's a motive.
I would almost say that
There's no motive.
I don't think it's, I don't know of any bids. I don't think we've been able to find another bid or RFP for it.
Well, okay, but
So
why?
that's just an
why
honest
would-
answer.
Why would that be an option out of all things? You know, that's like very disrespectful to the community. That's very disrespectful to the community. And it's like, I mean, it's a pleasure living here in Long Beach. I love living in Long Beach, you know, and you guys do a great job, you know, but
Ms.
this
Lee-
right here would be it would be a disservice to the community.
Okay, Ms. Lee, if you'd like to stay after and talk, we can, but we have a lot of other people
Well,
that are
I know
waiting to
that,
speak.
I know that, and when I was sitting back there, it was a couple of long-winded people that was up
I
here
know,
talking.
and-
You know what I'm saying? They was really talking, and they didn't get interrupted, so.
And you are
know.
correct, and we have let you go beyond your
See,
time
that,
as
and
well.
that's very disrespectful. If it's 3 minutes, there should be 3 minutes for everyone. And some people
And-
you allowed to speak more
Right.
and more.
And you're now up
But
to
thank
about
you.
5, so.
But thank you. Just
gotta
please consider not to try to bring anyone else within the Martin Luther King Center.
Okay, thank you. Barbara Bladesu?
I would just ask you to talk to your friends and neighbors and the administration who has been working for over 2.5 years with dialogue with the MLK Center, Inc.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Barbara Lattisu. I live at 650 Shore Road, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the residents of our condominium about the proposal number 12 of the increase in beach fees. Our residents all pay taxes, we all buy our beach passes, and we vote. In our opinion, we should not be over-penalized because our beach access is direct from our building. We are willing to pay for the ticket taker for the season, and we have over the years, but to be and as Janet had said, the upkeep of the boardwalk or the walkways. So I'm just asking you to reconsider any additional fees that are placed. We've been paying our fees every year, but I understand that they may go up substantially. We've never let our unit owners really know that the building is paying this fee. I have a feeling they'd freak out if they found out how much we were paying just to open up our beach gate. So I'm just asked that we keep the beach gate fees the same. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Damian Bettner. Okay, no Damian Bettner. Kevin Martinson.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Kevin Martinson, 311 East Penn Street, and I just want to say I'm a big supporter of the MLK Center, and I'm not up to date on what's going on, but I know that that community needs that center, and I think it's ridiculous that it's going up a bid. That's the first, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that's the first MLK Center in the country, correct? First MLK Center in the whole country. So we need to protect our community, protect our MLK Center, and protect our beaches, which I'm here about the landline going into Long Beach. And I'm really encouraged to hear that a lot of you guys are worried about the EMFs. Thank you for researching. And I also want to thank you for speaking with Equinor and also speaking with the governor and taking this up on our behalf. I do appreciate that. One thing I do want to speak about, though, I think Mr. Walsh, I wasn't here when you said it, but we have no control over this project, and it's a New York State problem. Don't you think that's a little bit of a cop-out?
I state facts. That's all I do. So when I'm asked a question, I go in, I look, I research, and I find out what the facts are. The fact is that Equinor picked the route. The fact is that the PSC makes the determination of whether or not the route gets approved. Those are the facts.
Well,
it's plain and simple.
It just doesn't seem the same problem. They're having the same problem in LBI in New Jersey. People are rising up against that, and they all seem to be together about that.
It doesn't mean that it stopped. It means
Well,
they're rising
but
up.
they've
Whether or
slowed it
not this
down.
gets stopped or not is not what I've been asked. I'm just telling you the facts. So how this winds up in the end is yet to be determined. But the facts are the facts.
Well, what about these people that you're hiring for us? You're hiring Nelson Pope Voris.
Nelson Pope Voorhees.
You're hiring Bolin Aldler Hyman and Eli Elabad, who is a high-powered Washington environmentalist lawyer. Now, aren't these the same lawyers that went to Wayne Scott and approved the whole Wayne Scott wind farm?
They didn't approve anything. They represented the community there.
Well, these are the people that you're asking to take a look, and what they did in Wayne Scott is they take a look at everything, they give the approvals, they say, okay, they give the check marks, and then it gets pushed right through to...
Their responsibility wasn't to get the approval. Their responsibility was to look out for the interest of the community. That's what their responsibility
wouldn't it make sense to hire these lawyers to help us stop the landline coming into Long Beach instead of having them, check mark stuff and give approvals? Because
So they're going to be the ones
it seems to me
representing us
that
in the Article
there's a
7
bias. There seems to be a bias here. If these are the guys who represented Wayne Scott, I don't want them. Because they're going to just come in here and say, okay, yeah, we're going to represent you. Let's get your Article 7 done. Let's get everything, all the paper right done, and then it all goes through to New York State. Because this guy, Albert, he's a high-powered Washington lawyer. Why are we hiring a guy from Washington? No answer?
You don't really, you're not interested in the answer. I've tried to give you answers.
No, go ahead.
It's okay. You can continue.
I think this is part of the problem, though. I mean, I do appreciate everything that you do here, but I don't think you understand our community that well. We live in a very diverse community. Your kids did not go to Long Beach High School. We live in a diverse community, all black kids, Spanish kids, white kids. They all go to Long Beach High School, and they're very, very tight. So you're not part of PTA. You're not part of this whole place here. So I think you don't understand us as well. I don't know why you're getting mad at me. I'm just asking you simple questions.
I'm not mad at you. I'm letting you finish your comments.
Okay, well, actually, your time's kind of up, but if you want to stay after and continue the conversation, we can do that.
Well, I just want to know why we're hiring these guys when they've actually done the Wayne Scott, and why wouldn't we hire somebody to stop the landline instead of continuing it?
So I'll address that a little bit. So first of all, a lawyer's job is to represent what the client tells them to represent. So why would we go out and hire Moe, Larry, and Curly law firm rather than hire people with expertise in this field, which is very few in this country, quite frankly. So we are hiring people that know this field. If you want to stop this, for example, you probably want a high-powered Washington lawyer to do it. And that's what we are doing. We are hiring the people that have the knowledge and expertise to then go do what we tell them to do.
What about Be Ready Law Group? They're not part of this, but why are we hiring them?
So your time is up. And like I said, if you want to stay after, I'll be happy to continue the conversation.
Okay. I mean, is there anything we should know about Be Ready? Are they, I just don't understand why we're paying them, because they're not part of that. Okay.
All right. Michael Graham.
Thank you.
Michael Graham. Okay. Andrea Giotto.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, Andrea.
I'm Andrea Gauto, 551 Riverside Boulevard. I'm Acting Executive Director of the Long Beach Martin Luther King Center. I'm here representing and speaking for our center. I would like to request that the City of Long Beach withdraw the eviction case against the Long Beach Martin Luther King Center, Inc. If you really care about the community in the North Park area, you will withdraw these case proceedings. My second request is for City Council and Acting City Manager to please stop spreading false information about the MLK Center programming and hours of operation. We're not open for only 2 hours, and I have brought the schedule of the hours of operation of the center for everyone that's here right now. To give you an example, today, Tuesday, as per our schedule, we had our senior program from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., our enrichment program from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., and our NA meeting from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Now, if the City of Long Beach would like us to open 24 hours and 7 days a week, please make available to us the same community development funds you put into the rec center. And I want you to keep in mind, we don't make money off the community like the City of Long Beach does from the rec center programs. Our programs are free to all the community. So next time that you have a platform to speak about the center, I would like you to speak facts. I'm the person that's there all day overseeing programming. And in regards to the RFP that the City of Long Beach put out for other organizations to occupy the building, as if the Martin Luther King Center is not even there anymore. This is a slap in the face to the children, seniors, and all the community that comes to the center on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Tammy Topi? Tammy Topi? Topel, I'm sorry, that was an L, not an I.
Wow, this has been very exciting. Hopefully you'll find this is exciting. My name is Tammy Topel. I live in Northport, so I'm not from around here. We came a couple of weeks ago and discussed the summary and deficit report for the Citizens Audit New York of the 2020 election, and now we're here to present a resolution for an audit of the 2022 general election. Whereas it is a recognized civil right in the United States for every citizen to have free and fair elections. Whereas it is the affirmative duty of our election officials to comply with federal and state laws governing administration and procedure of our elections, thereby guaranteeing our elections are accurate and free of distortion or manipulation. Whereas our constitutional system of representative government only works when the worth of honest ballots is not diluted by invalid ballots, and assuring accuracy can only be achieved through the operational integrity of our elections, as defined by those laws governing the following 5 processes. Number 1, rigorous verification of voter identity. Number 2, proven ballot security and intact chain of custody. Number 3, voting systems certified to be secure from operational, physical, and cyber threats. Number 4, meets all FISMA and state operational and risk assessment requirements. FISMA is a security program that manages risk. Meets auditability and traceability requirements and operational policy. Whereas an open source audit of the New York State 2020 election conducted by the New York Citizens Audit has uncovered evidence of massive inaccuracies that violate both federal and state laws, including, number 1, 2.4 million New York State voter ID numbers attached to 1.1 million registrants. So more than twice as many voter IDs than there are people registered to vote. Number 2, 740,000 ineligible votes statewide. Number 3, 338,000 more votes cast than voters who voted, which goes back to number one, where almost 1 million more people voted than there were registered. And then 987 voters who registered on January 1st, which was a holiday, and people do not register on a holiday. 195,000 votes cast in New York City went missing from the New York State voter database. They're supposed to match.
Okay, I need you to start winding up. Your time has expired.
Excuse me?
Your time has expired, so if you could kind of wrap up.
Oh,
I know
yes.
you have,
Okay.
you
So-
have two others of your party
so
here to speak.
two others will be following me. So just with the inaccuracies, a vote is not, an election is not supposed to be certified until the inaccuracies and questions have been answered. And this election was certified with over 1 million questions and inaccuracies still not answered. So,
okay.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
And David Kutkowski.
Hi, I'm David Kutkowski. I'm from Bethpage, so please don't hold that against me.
It's a lovely place.
It is, it is. I'm going to continue where my colleague went off. Whereas the findings that were said before trample on the accuracy requirements of the voting system for federal elections, wherein the system shall receive a target error rate no more than 1 in 10 million ballot positions. For voting systems, accuracy is defined as the ability of a system to capture, record, store, consolidate, and report specific selections and absence of selections made by a voter for each valid position without error. Whereas I must know that factual and provable and the intent of the voter is accurately represented by election results before certification by law can be conducted. Certifying of an election that varies from this law is an abridgment of the civil rights of the citizens. Whereas the state and federal officials have met the effort of the New York Citizens Audit to seek redress for these egregious violations with indifference, inaction, including our wonderful Attorney General, Secretary of State, State Board of Electors, Inspector General, FBI, state leadership of the Democratic and the Republican Party, county elected officials, sheriffs, district attorneys, and others. None of these violations were addressed prior to the admission and certification of the 2022 general election. And there prevails as a spirit of extreme contentment and zero trust between the people of different political ideologies across New York, which is destructive to our families and our way of life and our fabric of the United States. And since I was faster than everybody else, we'll keep moving this on because it is getting late. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Barbara Cataletto.
Hello again. Barbara Cataletto, One Watchway, Lloyd Neck, New York. Therefore, we call upon our representatives, including town board members, county legislators, state legislators, federal legislators, law enforcement, federal and state prosecutors, and judges to provide relief to the people and the insurance of domestic tranquility through the fulfillment of each of the following firm requests. 1, a complete end-to-end audit of the New York State 2022 general election for both paper and electronic records, including ballots, by a mutually agreed upon external, third-party bounded auditing firm, possessed of adequate insurance and indemnification for the handling and protection of the personal identifying information of millions of New York citizens in order to determine the true error rate. This audit will provide a comprehensive report and analysis of all lapses and errors with explanation of cause and what it can be determined. The enactment of legislation defining the mutually agreed upon process by which an end-to-end audit would be triggered in all future elections. An enactment of legislation defining the mutually agreed upon accuracy rate for New York State voter and county voter roll databases. The enactment of legislation allowing for anonymous vote verification and tracker by the voter including automatic mechanisms to report and remedy errors during the canvass period following an election, regardless of the ballot entry source. 5, criminalization of misconduct explicitly with regard to the state election law and increased penalties to reflect societal and generational harms inflicted by these crimes. To be resolved that the town board, or the city board, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what it's called, the city council? Yes, thank you. The City Council of Long Beach, New York stand in support with the concerns and remedies presented here. We employed Nassau County Legislator, New York State Legislator, federal legislators, law enforcement, federal and state prosecutors, judges, and state and county board of elections to complete and fulfill these requirements is request of the people. And just a final word. We know that this situation is not of your doing, nor does this board have the authority to correct it. But as a local representative, we are asking you to adopt this resolution and to push it further up the line to the legislative body that can correct it. This is only the way that we can assure that our voter rolls are corrected now and that we guarantee the way that they remain that way in the future. This is a statewide effort. This is not a Long Beach effort. This is not a Nassau County effort. This is not a Suffolk County, Long Island, but a New York State effort. And we look forward to having a positive result and a signature on the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Rashawn Cruz.
Good evening. I was planning to speak about one issue different, but I was unaware of the recent issue with the MLK Center, and I stand with the other people that if you do get rid of the MLK Center, you're doing more harm than helping. Second thing I wanted to talk to you about today is the recent gun violence that's been happening over there in that area with the West End. Recently, we lost a young man by the name of Sean Usher, and I wanted to bring that to your attention if you did not know. If I could reassure everybody here other than myself, I wanted to reassure, and please correct me if I am wrong exactly on what you do as the city council. And from numerous online sources, it tells me that that you guys introduce and vote on legislation having to do with all aspects of city life, negotiate the city's budget with the mayor and improve its adoption, monitor city agencies such as the Department of Education and the LBPD to make sure that they're effectively serving New Yorkers. Review land use and make decisions about the growth and development of our city. These duties and responsibilities, can be summed up as do the very best to represent your constituents only after you've seen the needs of the city as a whole. I have a few questions for you I'd like for all of you to answer truthfully if you must. But before I do, I want to say this to all of us to hear. As the City Council of Long Beach, as a citizen of Long Beach as well, I am seeing all of you up front right now. And I know that none of you may not know the pain that our community is feeling because you don't live like us every day. I know that you will never comprehend the seriousness of what's going on in our community, the Black community especially. However, I do know that you have the ability and the power to help your fellow man and to serve and vote on behalf of the people of Long Beach. If you have to write this down, I hope you need to. If you do, please do. But my questions are the following. Is gun violence even on the list of your concerns for Long Beach? What plans do you have in place to help stop gun violence? Are you individually or collectively affiliated with any organizations or coalitions that push to help stop gun violence? Have you or do you plan on giving your condolences to the family that's been recently hurt by gun violence? I want you also to keep in mind when you speak in support of something, it's nice to hear it. However, it makes a difference if you do something about it. God bless.
I'm sorry, I didn't write your questions down. I'm gonna just, and I'm only speaking for myself here. Something I told, and I did the Peace March before this tonight, and something I guess I told the commissioner. tell very few people. But I had a very close family member that was murdered, shot, died from gun violence. So
Same here.
this is something that is close to home for me, and it's not something, at least for me personally, that I ignore. So he works for us. He runs the police department. This is not going to be swept under a rug.
I'd also like to address some of the things that you said. No, I don't live like you, right, in the same way that you do. I think there's a lot of assumptions that sometimes are made about people and people's lives. And I don't think that it's necessarily a good idea to throw those assumptions on other people.
What assumptions?
Well, you don't know anything about necessarily me or the people that sit up here at the council. You probably didn't know that his close family member was killed.
Right, of course.
You probably don't know that I was married to a Hispanic woman and raised black children myself at my own home.
But what
And
assumptions
know
are
very,
you
and know
referring to?
very well about the prejudice that take place in the world. I will tell you this, though. The North Park community happens to be something that's very near and dear to my heart, and something that I take a particular interest in. The men and women in blue that stand around you here tonight are dedicated to making sure that that community is safe. It is an absolute tragedy that Sean Usher was murdered. We're not ignoring that in any way, shape, or form. We're very actively investigating it, and I have the utmost confidence that the person who did that will be put in handcuffs and put in jail for the rest of his life. I will also tell you this. We've increased our patrols, worked very diligently trying to get the Channel Park Housing Authority to get their cameras and everything back up and running. We do walkthroughs in that particular community every single tour. We have 3 tours every single day. We do walkthroughs, and our walkthroughs consist of our officers getting out of their car and literally walking into the Channel Park housings. My officers do that every single day, thousands of times a year. The community is not always welcoming to us. That motivates me more. Because what I'm trying to get my officers to do, and you can ask each and every one of them in the room if I said this, and I sent emails and I've spoken to them, almost every one of them individually. I want my officers to develop a relationship of trust with the Channel Park community and the whole North Park community, the same type of trust that they would have when they walked into their local deli and talked to the owner of that store, right? But it takes a community. We're not going to arrest our way out of that problem, the problem that's happening in that community. What we're going to need to do is find partnership in our community and work together to not only heal the wounds that have taken place, but to become the type of community that stands against not only gun violence, but drugs and all the other ills that plague that area. So you have a police commissioner here who's not only committed to it, I take it personally when these things happened. I went and I spent time with the family. I didn't want to be obtrusive and be in their house all the time. I bought them dinner. I tried to show them that I care because I do. So does every single one of these officers in this room. I appreciate your passion, and we're not stopping at this. We're going to do whatever we can do to make life better for each and every person that lives in this city. Thank you for your time.
I just want to chime in a bit here because what the Commissioner and Acting City Manager said is very true. Everyone up on this dais cares very, very deeply about this. And just a little personal history about myself. One of the issues that I became involved with as a citizen coming to a city council meeting when my daughter was young was about gun violence. There was a surge in gun violence behind the rec area where she and her friends were playing. I came here several different times, and I even wanted to establish a neighborhood watch and all kinds of things that were not well received at the time with previous administration. So I care very deeply, we all care very deeply, and we will work together.
And if I may go back to what you said, I don't know what you meant specifically as far as assumptions. I'm sure all of us here in some way we're connected to somebody that's been affected by gun violence, but what I was referring to is what I said. I don't think you understand exactly how it affects my community as black people. So, we may have people that is, dealing with gun violence and every day, of course, but the pain and how constantly it happens throughout the black community is not something that any of you could understand unless you are a black person yourself.
That may be true,
Yes.
but it doesn't mean I'm going to stop trying.
Of course. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. James Hodge. James Hodge.
James Hodge.
When I broke my leg, I had one of those. My wife almost killed me.
Okay, I'll reclaim my time, Roy. James Hodge, 95 East Fulton Street here in the Long Beach, New York. From the bay to the ocean, from Nevada to Maple in this great city. I want to say to this city council, because there's a lot of things that's said on TV where you could say it right in the community. If you really care about the community, you would do different. You would not say, I believe they have programs for this amount of time and that amount of time. Let me tell you something. Because I think you only do certain things you do to North Park because you have some people from the community that may support it. There was some tribal Africans that supported slavery, and that's how slaves got off of Africa. So if you have some black people that are supporting what you're doing to the center, the whole community, black, white, Spanish, Jewish, do not support. If you guys support what they do, if you don't support what they do, stand up and clap your hands. If you don't support what they're doing to the Martin Luther King Center, stand up and clap your hands. If you don't support what they're doing. Okay, thank you. So, again, how could you, first of all, a lot of you have your information wrong. How much is the city spending on the MLK Center per year? Anybody? Can you stop my time?
Actually, we did a look at that. We spent about $50,000 a year. Over the last 10 years, if you average it out, we spent about $3 million on the MLK Center. Taxpayer dollars.
Can you tell what that money is spent on?
I didn't bring the form with me, but it was HVAC replacement. It was wrapping the building. We did some roof work on the building. We've done a lot of stuff to that building.
Okay, so let me just tell you, what you're saying is not true. Okay, so what
I would disagree with that, James. I had them do a research study because I thought this was going to come up. I didn't bring the actual spreadsheet with me. I wish I would have at this point.
Okay, so consistently what you spend is what you put on the budget. Okay, for many years. Now, if you are repairing the things that were messed up during Sandy, the building got over $1 million. You can ask your, right here, Commissioner of Public Works. Consistently per year, you only spend gas and electric really in that building. Do you spend anything outside of gas and electric? You don't pay for taxes because how the land was gotten by the city and the non-for-profit. Look on the county register. Okay, you get urban development money from Stop and Shop land. You get community development. I promise you that you guys are using the money wrong. The center only spends, look, everybody can look at the budget, matter of fact, it said $20,000 expense on gas and electric. So that's your expense, gas and electric. We did this. Yeah, you did it because you got over $1 million, and all of the money that you're fixing to fix up the building, it's all through FEMA. Majority of it. Tell me how much tax dollars of the city of Long Beach is spent on that building. How much tax dollars? That's in your Ina here? What Ina? Ina, can you answer the question? How much Long Beach tax dollars is spent on that building? Not urban development, economic development, or community development, what you get for that community.
So as far as the capital improvements, I think that maybe Joe is the better source of that
per year,
information. So per year, you mentioned that out of the tax dollars, city spends money on gas and electric, but there are also costs that you will not see in the budget of the MLK. For example, we have to insure the building for property and liability purposes, right? Well, the city pays insurance for the building, okay? We estimated it because the city pays $2 million in the property and liability insurance. $2 million, you can look, I can show it to you in the budget. So for all the buildings, of which I'm okay, it is a building, right? So between you and me, we can agree that it's at least $25,000, hence that $50,000 number. We can delve into that deeper, but I'm gonna let Joe talk about the capital portion.
The capital is because of what happened during the storm. All of the capital that's being done, you're getting reimbursed. I don't want you to trick the residents that their tax dollars is money that's coming from the federal government to fix the building up. Let's not make the taxpayers think that the center's just living for free. How much do the city get from the Stop and Shop urban development?
So, James, unfortunately, your time is up.
Well, it
If
was
you wanna-
run. I'm just okay. Let me finish because we can go on, but the numbers are wrong. Let me just say this.
Go ahead, wrap up.
And don't be condescending because you were very mean to everybody and we pay your taxes. But let me say this to the commissioner, to this city council. How disrespectful are you to have this room laced with a lieutenant, 2 sergeants, all of this overtime because you thought it was going to be a whole lot of black people here? How dare you do that? Whenever it was a whole bunch of white people or others for other issues, you never had this. Roll a camera on all of the police officers. This is overtime, and we just had a murder in our town, and the murderer is still loose. And so if we have extra cops, then that means this is overtime because you thought it was going to be out of control. That's how much disrespect you have for that community. And if you think that community is going to stand for it, time will tell. And so again, to this city, to have a lieutenant in all of these officers is totally disrespectful. You wanted to put fear in us and intimidate people from speaking. So again, to you, please be respectful. What you're doing to the MLK, which was built for the community organization, is wrong. It will not stand. I promise you. This bell is the bell that used to ring when I used to eat as a child in thousands at 5 p.m. every day. I ring it in honor of Virginia Sherritt.
All right, thank you, James. And Cedric.
While Cedric is coming, did you guys speak to any founding board members of the MLK? Have any of you speak to any founding members?
Since the lawyers of the MLK Center, Inc. have been in discussion with the Corporation Counsel's office for over 2 years regarding this lease, we do not talk to former board members or members of the board. Thank you, James.
Thank you. Thank you. And before you started with attorneys, you personally called Nassau County Youth Board and told them they didn't have a building and tried to get them to lose the money. You personally, and the attorney told you, don't say that because they do have a building. And soon after that, she got fired. Don't worry, it'll get out in the community.
That is not facts.
It's facts. I got it.
No, it is not facts.
I got it. I'll show you.
Karen. Cedric.
How you guys doing today?
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, James. Appreciate you. Appreciate everybody. The kind words and support of the Long Beach Martin Luther King Center. My name's Cedric Cole. This is probably your first time you guys seeing me. You know, I am the chairman of the board of directors at the Long Beach Martin Luther King Center. And as you can see, we have the support here and all that, so I don't need to really go much into what I'm about to talk about. I'm just going to say my piece and I'm just going to leave at that. We don't need to go back and forth. I know it's late. I'm a product of the MLK Center, the Long Beach MLK Inc. Center. I am a product of it. I've been living in this community, North Park area, for about 29 years now. I'm a college graduate. I'm a New York State M.E.T. I'm a New York State licensed pharmacy technician. So you can see I didn't let the environment that I grew up in box me in. And it was because of the Long Beach Martin Luther King Inc. Center that helped me reach the levels to where I am today. And that's why I've been groomed to the position to lead this community and lead the Long Beach Martin Luther King Inc. Center to the right way. The lies and fabrications that you guys been putting on our building and agency is disgusting and tasteless. And the fact that you guys continue to go public with it, knowing that it's lies, I don't even know how to even look. How do y'all look at yourself in the mirror? How do y'all look at y'all kids, y'all grandkids, y'all moms, dads, sisters, brothers, and sit there and go to sleep at night knowing that you're trying to strip a community of a very imperative building that helped many children, seniors, everybody in this community succeed? That place gives people hope. Because when Hurricane Sandy hit, I didn't see any of y'all around over there. I didn't see any elected officials over there. Hey, I'm talking. Okay. I'm saying I didn't see a lot. I didn't see a lot. Okay. I barely see you. I've been there all my life. I barely see you too. And that's okay. And that's okay. And that's okay. And then I think that's the issue and the disconnect, that you guys don't come. I'm the head of this source. Y'all say, you know, Commissioner, you said you heard that we were open only 2 hours. You got my phone number. Ms. McInnes, you got my phone number too. How can nobody reach me? I ain't hard to find. I walk around these streets comfortably because I live here. I love it here. It's my community. So how can nobody just reach the source and just ask what's going on, but instead spew out the lies?
It's easy, Cedric, because when I over 2 years ago tried to reach out to you to discuss a lease negotiation, you admonished me in an email that I had that said, how dare you reach out to me when you know that Mr. Brewington is my attorney and the city has to communicate to us through Mr. Brewington. So that was your response to me trying to work it out for you.
Me? Hold on, James. I've only been president of the board for 1.5 years, so it wasn't me that you spoke to. It wasn't me that you spoke to, so trust me. I got emails and text messages too. Okay. So it's okay. I know it's okay. It's okay. I know. It's okay. But like I said, I'm not here to go back and forth, especially with people that don't live in this community or have any impact on this community. You guys just you are looking from the inside out and just thinking, you know, we can do whatever we want. Let's walk all over the little people, you know, because who cares? You know, I'm not really the man myself, so I need something to make me feel better. But you guys are just lying. You're saying it's a city building. The city dedicated the building to us in 1981. There's a big plaque there you can go see. You guys put it there. So, and then you just said yourself, you only speak facts. Is it a fact that we don't have any programs? Is it a fact that we're only open 2 hours? Is it a fact that we've been not trying to cooperate with you guys? What's the facts? Because you guys haven't said one fact since. There hasn't been no lease since 1995. If there is, there hasn't been one presented to us. And the MLK Inc. came with an offer. We tried to sit down and negotiate terms. We didn't hear nothing back from you guys. And y'all know that. You know the truth. Only time will tell. People need people. The North Park community needs the MLK Inc. Center. You can sit up here, you know, y'all probably just gonna go home, go to sleep fine, go about your days. But I'm gonna tell you one thing, God don't play about me, and he don't play about my people, and he don't play about that Martin Luther King Inc. Center. So I'm gonna just say this last piece: withdraw the eviction proceedings. Come holler at me. I ain't hard to find. Let's work it out for the better of the community.
I just want to add something. Obviously, there's strong feelings on this. I think it's a little interesting. We're talking about lies when the MLK Inc. lawyer is out there telling them we're going to sell the building to build condos, which is a complete lie. And if that's what you're telling people, you're conning them. So let's go back, and you said you've only been in charge a year and a half. For 2 years, we begged you to sign a new lease with the city, and for 2 years, you canceled meetings, you refused to talk to us. When, to his point, he would reach out to you, you say, no, you got to talk to Fred. Fred doesn't answer. 2 years. 2 years we tried to get you to sign a lease. We begged you, and you refused. Here's the problem. We get it. We want that building to be successful. That building belongs to the community. It's a city-owned building, but it's a building for the community to use, and we want to make it the best building possible with the most programs. And if bringing in more services than MLK Inc. can provide helps that community even more, that is the right thing to do. I don't know why you would resist bringing more services in. So, okay. Apparently, by the way, see, Cedric, could I just ask one? Have you got? I guess I'll just end the meeting. Cedric, could you stick around for a minute? And I have a couple of questions. And thank you, folks, for coming. That was it. And we'll see you. I just want to find out if they got their county funding back.
Yeah, did Dennis leave?
No.